Chapter 17:12. The moment Monk Golden Lamp's aura disappeared, Wang Ling, Wang Ying, and Death Heavenly Tao sensed it almost at the same time. This fearless spirit of sacrificing oneself to save the world was in line with the monk's usual style. It was just that Wang Ling was a little displeased that he had thrown this mess back at him. He hadn't killed these two dragon descendants, and had instead chosen to be swallowed up by the god-devouring umbrella, because he wanted them to understand the importance of freedom and not willingly take on the identity of a dragon as a willing laborer for a shady villain. As for Jingzi and Yan, Wang Ling himself wasn't very sure whether they would be able to comprehend it in the end. The only thing he knew was that if these two dragons ended up coming for him, given that he didn't know when to hold back, they would probably die. Monk Golden Lamp's situation is more complicated. He probably isn't completely dead, but on his deathbed, said Death Heavenly Tao. Wang Ling, Wang Ying, and Death Heavenly Tao had received a lot of information from Monk Golden Lamp. On his deathbed? Does that mean he's not completely dead? Asked Wang Ying. That Sequence 3 God-Devouring Umbrella has the ability to swallow the inner world and make it its own. But for some reason, that dragon called Jingzi only swallowed Monk Golden Lamp's inner world and hasn't digested it yet, said Death Heavenly Tao. That is to say, if he hasn't digested it, as long as he breaks that black umbrella, the undigested inner world will automatically be released, and the monk will be able to come back with it, right? Said Wang Ying. In theory, yes. Death Heavenly Tao nodded, but there was a worried expression on his face. These two dragon descendants are very strong. Even if Monk Golden Lamp didn't give up resisting in the end, it would still be a bitter fight. If even the monk is in such a state, if anyone else were to run into him, they would definitely be dead meat. I don't think there's any need to be so pessimistic. The only way to prevent such a situation from happening is that Lord Ling has already made preparations. What preparations? As Death Heavenly Tao and Wang Ying talked, Wang Ling displayed the mountainous pile of talismans in the space of his king's eye. Death Heavenly Tao recognized them almost immediately. Death substitute talismans? He remembered that his brother had been forced to draw the survival Heavenly Tao in order to save Lotus Sun last time. Fortunately, Lotus Sun had been quickly rescued and hadn't been affected by the power of the curse. But there was still more than one. 7 million extra death substitute talismans, which were now piled up like a mountain in his king's eye. If he sold it, he would become the richest person in the world. So Lingzhen means, that's right. The commander had already bound these death substitution talismans to everyone who was related to him. Make sure that they are not affected by this incident. Wang Ying laughed. If these resurrected people know nothing about my lord's ability, there will be an additional memory erasure effect, and they will forget their memories of the period before and after their death. I will pretend that nothing happened. More than one. 7 million death substitute talismans. Death Heavenly Tao face-palmed and couldn't help but laugh out loud. He was a professional Heavenly Tao. You never smile, unless he couldn't help it. But this was really too funny. More than one. 7 million lives. Even if these two dragon descendants were strong enough to turn people into ashes with one slap, wouldn't they still curse when faced with people who were continuously resurrected and reassembled by the death substitute talismans? Furthermore, while these death substitute talismans had been created by survival Heavenly Tao, Wang Ling had in fact enchanted the materials used to make the talismans, and had enchanted them again after the death substitute talismans were completed. The death substitute talismans could resurrect whoever they wanted, and they were unstoppable. No matter what method the other party used, they couldn't be interrupted. Elsewhere, the demon-revealing mirror trio of Loopy Toad, Xiang Yi, and Qinzong also received the message that the monk had gone to between the dying. Can this really make those two dragon babies wake up? Xiang Yi expressed his doubts about Golden Lamp Monk's method. Maybe it will work, said Qinzong. After all, among the ancient ones, excluding Tao ancestor Wang, apart from Peng Shiren, Monk Golden Lamp was the most experienced. There had to be a reason why Monk Golden Lamp had chosen to do this. But what he was more worried about was the crazy retaliation of these two dragon descendants later on. This race was innately belligerent, and the monks' action was a disgrace to them. Actually, I'm not afraid of fighting. What I'm afraid of is that they won't come. The death substitute talismans on Lord Ling's side are already ready. There are more than one. 7 million of them. Loopy Toad replied confidently. It had also received news about the deployment of the death substitute talismans, which gave it a lot of confidence. At the very least, it could do whatever it wanted in the upcoming operation without risking its life. Ha ha, as expected of Ling Junren, that's how he does things. Qin Zong laughed. At that moment, the three of them had already arrived at the ground floor of Lu Weiji's staff apartment, where Gu Xuanji lived. They had come to verify Gu Xuanji's identity, and they all had a vague, ominous feeling about this. Lu Weiji wasn't home when the door opened, and Gu Xuanji didn't look much different from his usual self as he smiled brightly. "You're here? Come in." It was impossible to see any difference on the outside, but even without the beauty mirror, Qin Zong could already sense that something was wrong. He felt that there was something wrong with Gu Xuanji. It was an indescribable feeling, which could also be said to be Qin Zong's sixth sense. When he quickly took out the beauty mirror and held it in front of Gu Xuanji's face in the mirror almost instantly twisted. Good heavens, it really isn't. Qin Zong cried out in alarm. At the same time, the thought plague in Gu Xuanji's body also swiftly pushed Qin Zong away. Damn it, he hadn't expected to be discovered even though he had been hiding so well. He hadn't even warmed this body yet. Don't come over. In the face of the threat from Loopy Toad, Qin Zong, and Xiang Yi, there was a smack. So fast, he raised his sword fingers and pressed them against his throat. If you come over, I can't guarantee your friend's life. He made this threat. However, Loopy Toad, Qin Zong, and Xiang Yi all had cold expressions on their faces. Two people and one dog looked at each other. Then Xiang Yi took out a 9-yang divine sword, which was a pistol from his waist, and fired a shot at Gu Xuanji's head. In a flash, Gu Xuanji's brain and blood splattered, and he lay in a pool of blood. The thought plague that had invaded Gu Xuanji's body would never have thought that this bunch of people would actually be so heartless to their friend. When the host body died, the host would naturally wither away at an extremely fast speed. In fact, not long after the thought plague completely withered away, the tissue fluid flowing on the ground returned to Gu Xuanji's head at a speed visible to the naked eye. This was the correct way to use the death substitute talisman. Gu Xuanji frowned. Lying on the ground, he felt a slight headache. He rubbed his head and got up. This time, it was the real Gu Xuanji. He felt like he had just had a nightmare. It felt like someone had shot him in the head. Chapter 17:13. I didn't expect Brother Xiang Yi's 9-yang divine sword to actually have a pistol version. Qin Zong clicked his tongue in wonder. Times have changed. We always have to prepare more. Xiang Yi wiped the 9-yang divine sword, pistol version, in his hand and smiled. In addition to the pistol version, I also have submachine guns, shotguns, assault rifles, and Gatling guns. These guns are made of the same material as the main sniper, but their range and intelligence aren't as good as the main snipers. Each has its pros and cons. It could be seen that Xiang Yi's 9-yang divine sword was indeed astonishingly powerful. Needless to say, the main sniper's power didn't need to be mentioned, but it was already very incredible that the pistol version could directly headshot Gu Xuanji. When all was said and done, Gu Xuanji was a keeper of order appointed by the heavenly Tao. Who knew he would be so dishonorable? It could only be said that Gu Xuanji wasn't strong enough at the moment. Secondly, the thought plague lurking in Gu Xuanji's body thought it had disguised itself very well and wasn't on guard against them. I never thought you'd have such a day. Qin Zong couldn't help laughing inwardly when he saw Gu Xuanji crawl up for the ground with his hands over his head. The timeline he had come to was before Gu Xuanji had been assigned to his universe. Picking himself up from the ground, Gu Xuanji cast a spell to calm his thoughts. He then immediately saw Xiang Yi, Qin Zong, and the emerald green Loopy Toad standing in front of him. "Brother Gu, you fell for it," said Loopy Toad. It put its dog paw on Gu Xuanji's shoulder, and in an instant, Gu Xuanji knew everything that had happened so far. I wasn't cautious enough. He sighed and then looked at Xiang, Yi, and Qin Zong in front of him. Gu Xuanji knew the origins of the two men, especially Qin Zong's. He had long since figured it out. Who would have thought that the person he would train in the future would actually return to the previous timeline and laugh at him instead? Gu Xuanji was a little displeased, but he didn't directly show it. Now that the enemy was right in front of them, they had to stick together. As for anything else, he could only settle the score later. After he received the mission to go to the 10th universe, he would definitely show Qinzong what the heavenly Tao was like. Greetings, everyone. He bowed and then took the initiative to extend his hand. Xiang Yi was enthusiastic and quickly returned the handshake. But Qinzong turned his gaze away as if he hadn't seen it, and chatted with Loopy Toad about the Thought Plague. I never thought that the Thought Plague would be able to invade even those of Order so easily. The situation doesn't look good. The corners of Gu Xunji's mouth twitched when he heard this, and he withdrew the hand he had intended to shake Qinzong's. Although it didn't sound like there was anything wrong with it, Gu Xunji still felt that there was something strange about it. Loopy Toad could only break out in a sweat like this. After all, it's part of the system of the old rulers. It's not strange for an ancient creature to have this ability. Right now, the most important thing is to confirm their identities. Right now, the members are too scattered. If we check them one by one, we might not have enough time. After he finished speaking, the crowd fell silent. I have an idea. At this moment, Gu Xunji said, "It's just that it might be a little violent." Loopy Toad, what is it? Gu Xunji, send out a notice. Gather all the core members of the battle sect here. Loopy Toad, meet here. Gu Xunji, then shoot them as soon as you enter. Qinzong, it had to be said that in Qinzong's opinion, this method was very much in line with Gu Xunji's usual style. In any case, thanks to the death substitute talisman, these Thought Plague victims definitely wouldn't be able to react in time if they were suddenly killed. The specific way to deal with them could be the same as when Xiang Yi had collapsed in a pool of blood earlier. When the host's body died, the Thought Plague would also wither, and the death substitute talisman would activate the resurrection mechanism. Xiang Yi trembled when he heard this. So, Senior Gu wants me to offend the entire battle sect on my own. He was just a guest official who had just joined the sect a few days ago, and he wanted to blow up everyone's heads. He wasn't a devil. Gu Xuanji. Brother Xiang, you're wrong. Special times naturally require special treatment. I believe that the brothers of the other battle sect won't blame Brother Xiang when they learn about this. It's just a reset for each core member of the battle sect. Xiang, he didn't know why, but no matter how he listened, it sounded a little unreliable at that moment. Loopy Toad seemed to think of something. By the way, I remember that the 9-Yang Divine Sword has the ability to automatically lock onto an enemy's head from a distance and blow it up. Xiang, he had a bad feeling. Yes, we do. You just need to provide the relevant photos. Loopy Toad. That's even better. If we use this method, we might as well directly blow up their heads from a distance. If we gather everyone and open the door to kill them, I think it might make them raise their guard. If one of them is invaded again, I'm afraid the plan will be directly exposed. Do we really have to do that? Xiang Yi was still a little scared. The situation is urgent. It's too inefficient to check them one by one. Loopy Toad sighed and floated in the air as it patted Xiang Yi on the shoulder and said, "I'll leave the rest to you, Brother Xiang." Xiang, but I need photos of them. Gu Xunji immediately said, "There are 1-inch and 2-inch ID photos of all the core members in the archive at the back of Battle Sect, including their profile." Loopy Toad nodded. "Then I'll have to trouble you to prepare this assassination list." Xiang, the godlike's assassination list. Sure enough, he had told the truth. On the other side, Wang Ling, Wang Ying, and Death Heavenly Tao had a clear goal. After ascertaining that they would distribute the remaining death substitute talismans to everyone in Battle Sect as insurance, they immediately set out to search for the little girl, Chen Xiaomu, who had been invaded by the Thought Plague. According to Wang Ling's judgment, The thought plague in Chun Xiaomu's body was most likely a parent or a component that had an important connection with the parent. At the very least, it was the first wave that had been separated from the parent. If they could find Chun Xiaomu, they might be able to follow the clues and directly track the parent. Because he had resurrected Chun Xiaomu's parents earlier, Wang Ling took advantage of their inattentiveness to pluck out a strand of hair from each of them. Using the Great Blood Origin spell, Wang Ling compared the two strands of hair DNA and then traced them. Very quickly, Chun Xiaomu's coordinates converged into a flashing red dot on a massive map of the universe in Wang Ling's mind, and it grew larger and larger. According to the information provided by the hospital, Chun Xiaomu had disappeared after being taken to the hospital, and no one knew where she had gone. Wang Ling thought that the thought plague which had invaded Chun Xiaomu's body would report the situation to Bao Bai Group. But the moment the coordinates in Wang Ling's mind gradually became clear, he suddenly froze. These coordinates, Wang Ling muttered in a low voice, and deaf heavenly Dao happened to hear him. Ling Zhenren, what's wrong with these coordinates? On the side, Wang Ying, who was crossing his arms, also frowned. These coordinates are at Miss Rong's villa. But I don't understand. After it invaded Chun Xiaomu's body, what is it doing there? Chapter 1714. It was still 8 o'clock in the evening on December 26th. 4 hours had passed since Jean Deng and Lotus Sun had returned to the real world after upgrading Mysterious Sea into a 9-core spirit sword in the mountain of Backtrack. Too many things had happened in 4 hours. The appearance of the thought plague had enveloped all of Songhai City in a haze. Lotus Sun obediently stayed in her room with a 9-cores Mysterious Sea in her hand. Before long, the head maid, Auntie Chio, knocked on the door and entered with a tray. On the tray was a pot of freshly made hand-ground coffee, 2 cubes of sugar, and a cup of fresh milk. "Miss, aren't you going out for a walk today?" Auntie Chio asked. Seeing Lotus Sun staying at home and looking out the window, she felt that something was off and couldn't help feeling worried. "It's fine, Auntie Chio." Lotus Sun smiled. "Just leave the coffee on the table. I'll drink it later." She naturally had her own reasons for choosing to stay in seclusion. Now that Mysterious Sea had been upgraded to a 9-core spirit sword, she was worried that using it casually might harm unrelated people. Of course, the most important thing was that Wang Ling seemed to hope that she wouldn't go anywhere. It would be best if she stayed at home, which would also avoid some unnecessary trouble. But today was a special day. It was clearly Wang Ling's birthday. Recalling the embarrassing scene when she had visited the Wang family's small villa earlier, she couldn't help blushing a little. Just thinking about it was embarrassing. She had clearly gone to wish Wang Ling a happy birthday. In the end, he only gave her crispy noodle snacks and didn't even have the time to give her a blessing. After returning from the Mountain of Origins, the more Lotus Sun thought about it, the more she felt that something was wrong. She sat at her desk and stared at the scene outside the window in a daze. The smartphone on the desk opened a message editing page. She had originally typed a long string of words, but she felt that it was a little too long-winded as a birthday greeting, so she deleted it. Thus, Lotus Sun rested her head in her hands and fell into a dilemma. Because if he sent a text message, she felt that this was a little too insincere. Just as her thoughts were drifting, Auntie Chio pushed the door open and walked in, bringing her back to reality. When she looked out of the window, she saw a maid walking in with a little girl in a red dress. "Aunt Chio, why is there a little girl in the yard? Whose child is this?" Lotus Sun asked. "I was just about to talk to Miss about this." Auntie Chio replied, "This is Gardener Zhang San's daughter. I heard that she's from the countryside and has never entered the city. Now that she's finally in the city, she wants to take a look around. But I remember that Uncle Zhang San isn't. You're right, Mississippi Zhang San is infertile. However, when he was young, he saved some sperm. It was said that he wanted to find a rich woman who would like him and sell it. In the end, he really found one." Auntie Chio said confidently, "I heard it's a blonde foreign woman called Mariana. His family owned a winery and was very rich. Through the big data comparison, we finally found Zhang San's sperm bank data. So this little girl is the daughter of that foreign woman called Mariana?" Not really. The situation is more complicated. Auntie Chio said, in order to maintain her figure, Mariana doesn't want to be a pregnant woman. So I found a surrogate. Surrogacy? But isn't this illegal? Yes, it's illegal. But isn't Zhang San a lawless madman? I heard that when the little girl was 7 months pregnant, Mariana didn't want her anymore and wanted to abort her no matter what. She felt that after the child was born, it would affect her career. Annie Chio sighed and said, so not long after the child was born, she was brought back to China and has always been taken care of by Zhang San and his parents. Speaking of which, she's a pitiful girl. After listening to the whole story, Lotus Sun was stunned. She didn't know why, but she felt that this story sounded a little familiar. It was very much like material extracted from the present world, and it was full of twists and turns and strangeness. It made people gasp in amazement, but also felt their worldview shatter. Finding a surrogate to give birth was illegal in the first place, and then suddenly going back on her word and wanting to abort the child in the middle of the process left people speechless. Not only did she not intend to raise the child after it was born, but she also did everything she could to distance herself from it. This fully reflected the nature of a scumbag woman. Reality proved that scumbags didn't discriminate between men and women. The good and evil of human nature could never be divided by gender, let alone judged by thinking. Because human nature was a pool of deep water, and you would never know how deep it was. By the way, why does Annie Chio know so much? Lotus Sun took a sip of her coffee and looked like she was watching a melon. That's right. The employees in our courtyard don't have any secrets. Besides, Zhang San said it himself. It's not that we're nosy. Auntie Chio said, Miss Fong Xing, we'll look after this little girl and won't disturb you. She'll be sent off in a few days. Okay. The truth was that Lotus Sun was still a little dazed. Because this story was so bizarre and twisted, it sounded like it was true, but it also didn't feel like it was true. After the head maid left, she looked at the little girl who was running around in the yard. Suddenly, she started to imagine if she would have such a day too. What are you thinking about, Rong Rong? At that moment, Sun Yinger popped her head out again and couldn't help laughing. Are you thinking about having a child with Wang Ling in the future? Before she could finish speaking, Lotus Sun covered her mouth tightly. What nonsense are you talking about, Inger? I'm not thinking about that. You don't mean it. Sun Yinger was overjoyed in her heart. She just loved seeing Lotus Sun so embarrassed that she wanted nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. Looking at Sun Yinger's smug expression, Lotus Sun couldn't help retorting. You're talking about me? Aren't you the same? You go out with President Ing every night. Who knows when you'll come back one day with a big belly? I'm not. Sun Yinger snorted. Who wants to have a child with him? He's a hooligan. Damn pervert. Lecher. Big asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I'll never like him for the rest of my life. He's forcing me. Forcing me. There's no use in forcing my feelings. Besides, I'm not going to do anything with him. Lotus Sun hadn't expected Sun Yinger's reaction to be so big, and she shouted excitedly. Lotus Sun wanted to say something to calm Sun Yinger down a little, but in the next second, her voice abruptly stopped. Because Wang Ling, Wang Ying, and Death Heavenly Dao had suddenly appeared in her room in a flash. At this moment, Wang Ying pinched Sun Yinger's chin and smiled coldly. You say it again? Chapter 17:15. Suddenly being pinched by a familiar hand, Sun Yinger was scared out of her wits. Her mind filled in the blanks, and she could almost imagine being tortured by Wang Ying in space at 8 o'clock sharp. This was a typical case of a loose tongue causing trouble. Sun Yinger had done this more than once, so when Wang Ying pinched her chin, he looked very angry on the surface, but in fact, he was very happy in his heart. He had a feeling that Sun Yinger was doing this on purpose to provoke him, so that she could continue doing that kind of thing with him. So, are you trying to reject me? He stared at Sun Yinger with a profound look in his eyes. Sun Yinger's mouth was covered. She didn't dare to move or speak, but in her heart, she was cursing and calling Wang Ying a pervert. She actually didn't quite understand why every time a girl said no, guys always felt that it was an ironic word. After interacting with Wang Ying for the past few days, Sun Yinger actually knew how to deal with Wang Ying, which was to scold her behind her back, but in fact, it had nothing to do with her at all. As long as she admitted defeat and acted coquettishly, Wang Ying wouldn't do anything to her. So she squeezed out a few drops of tears from her eyes and looked at Wang Ying pitifully. Ugh, you're hurting me. This exquisite performance didn't look fake, which made Wang Ying loosen her grip a little. Seeing that Wang Ying backed down, Sun Yinger knew that her plan had succeeded. She quickly changed the topic and said, "Now is not the time to talk about this. I'll deal with you tonight." Wang Ying smiled and let go of his hand. He knew that Sun Yinger was changing the topic, and it was her usual trick. He liked to bully Sun Yinger, but recently, Wang Ying found that he couldn't do anything about Sun Yinger's pitiful appearance. Especially recently, after Sun Yinger learned to act like a spoiled child from who knows where, he still could not harden his heart to deal a heavy blow. "Wang Ling, CEO Ying and Senior Death Heavenly Dao, why are you here?" Lotus Sun asked at that moment. Seeing that the atmosphere was starting to become a little stiff, she could only help to change the topic. Of course, it was mainly to stop Wang Ying and Sun Yinger from openly flirting in front of her and Wang Ling. Yes, as far as Lotus Sun was concerned, this was just plain flirting. She and Wang Ling hadn't made any progress yet. She was so envious of him. Wang Ling, after a few seconds of silence, Death Heavenly Dao, who was wearing the uniform of number 60 middle school's colonel, finally cleared his throat and said, "Miss Rong, don't you think there's something wrong?" Lotus Sun thought about it carefully. She had been staying in her own house all this time. If there was anything out of the ordinary, it was that gardener Zhang San's daughter that Annie Chio had mentioned to her earlier. There's a little girl in a red dress in the yard downstairs. Annie Chio said that she's the daughter of our gardener, Zhang San. "I've always felt that something was wrong," she said truthfully. "That's right. She's the one we're looking for," Death Heavenly Dao replied. "This little girl is the thought plague in disguise. Her name is Chun Xiaomo. It should have nothing to do with your gardener. I'm afraid the thought plague has taken control of Miss Rong's servants and put on a show together. So they want to target me? We still don't know what the goal of this group of thought plague is. That's why we can't alert them." Wang Ying continued, "So, we still need you to cooperate with us on this matter. Then what should I do?" Lotus Sun asked curiously. "It's very simple. Just let us enter your body," said Death Heavenly Dao. Wang Ling, he had a serious expression on his face, but as soon as he said this, Lotus Sun's face suddenly flushed red. Perhaps realizing that his words were ambiguous, Death Heavenly Dao hurriedly corrected himself. "To be precise, it's the sword spirit space. That way, we can fully guarantee Miss Rong's safety." Lotus Sun's realm wasn't high enough, so she naturally didn't have her own core world. But now that she had the passive ability of becoming one with the sword with Mysterious Sea, which was shared with Lotus Sun's sword spirit space, its spatial ability was no less than that of a normal core world. In fact, the 9-core Mysterious Sea's sword spirit space was already on par with the Supreme World. Lotus Sun naturally knew what Death Heavenly Dao was talking about. Given the 9-core Mysterious Sea's current power, its sword spirit space could accommodate 300 million or even 3 billion people, let alone 3. She had been protected by Wang Ling and Golden Lamp before, and had been to their intrinsic spirit fields or core worlds. She had never thought that one day Wang Ling would also enter hers. But there was always a first time in life. Lotus Sun had seen a lot of things, and while she was a little surprised by this sudden proposal, she quickly regained her composure. She wanted to help Wang Ling. Furthermore, she definitely wouldn't let him down. With this in mind, she released her Mysterious Sea sword chi, and at the same time, opened a hole in the air with her fingers, allowing Wang Ling, Wang Ying, and Death Heavenly Dao to enter her sword spirit space. Elsewhere, Chun Xiaomu, who had already successfully infiltrated Lotus Sun's house, thought that his plan was flawless. The organization had sent her here at first to keep an eye on her, but after Golden Lamp had been killed, the organization's higher-ups had changed their plans. According to reliable intelligence, This ordinary female cultivator from Earth had a total of 9 heavenly Tao magic cubes on her, and these 9 magic cubes would be the key to their next master plan. Next, he just needed to find a way to enter Lotus Sun's body. However, Chun Xiaomu knew that it wouldn't be that easy to enter Lotus Sun's body. According to the information the group had obtained, Lotus Sun's body had been blessed, and random invasions could be dangerous. But the strength of the Thought Plague was that apart from invading a single person, they could also invade in teams. This was a method that they would only choose when facing powerful cultivators. However, because of Lotus Sun's special status, Chun Xiaomu had to make sure that nothing went wrong. So after being brought to Lotus Sun's house, he mobilized his forces and used his own method of breeding and spreading the infection. Thus, over 95% of the more than 100 servants in Lotus Sun's residence were already under his control. Of course, he had also cautiously left behind some who were close to Lotus Sun and deliberately didn't let them be controlled in order to make Lotus Sun lower her guard. And now, everything was ready. With so many brothers and sisters nearby, more than 90 Thought Plague cultivators would attack the same person together. Chun Xiaomu didn't believe that Lotus Sun could escape. The error-free chapters of the daily life of the Immortal King will continue to be updated on the mobile game bar. There are no advertisements on the site, so please collect and recommend the mobile game bar. If you like the daily life of the Immortal King, please collect. The daily life of the Immortal King mobile game bar is updated the fastest. Chapter 17-16. Controlling Lotus Sun was in fact just one part of Baiji's plan. Since setting up Bao Bai Group, he had used the advantage of stealth in the air to control the overall situation, and at the same time develop gene editing to synthesize dragon descendants. Lotus Sun was a key piece in this game of chess, so he had to take her down no matter what. But based on his previous experience of dealing with Wang Ling, Baizhi naturally knew that this man wouldn't be so easy to deal with. Thus, in order to gather enough pieces for this game of chess this time, he was exceptionally cautious with every step he took. In the boundless Milky Way, inside an unknown cloud-shaped celestial body that emitted a milky white light that was as holy as an angel's feather, a faint human silhouette appeared. His beautiful face was covered in a faint layer of moonlight, and his snow-white, crystalline body was otherworldly, like an otherworldly god. At the end of his tail was a slender, white dragon tail, which flickered with starlight as it moved. He was like a bright moon surrounded by stars, full of emptiness and peerless elegance. This was Baiji's current appearance. Relying on his obsession, he had become a body of consciousness. Last time, he had imagined himself to be Golden Lamp Monk's junior brother, Yang Xuanji. This time, he had transformed into Moonlight Dragon, one of the 3 leaders of the Dragon Clan at the beginning of the Eternal Era, supreme, pure, flawless, holy. All holy words were inadequate to describe his current state. Baizhi never thought that after being humiliated by Wang Ling several times, he could actually reach his current level and become the leader of the Dragon Clan at the beginning of the Eternal Era. So he felt like he could do it again. He felt like he was invincible. He felt like he could once again attack Wang Ling, this man who had repeatedly defeated him and pushed him to the bottom of the valley. And this time, he had learned from his previous lessons and was cautious in everything. As long as he could defeat Wang Ling, or even threaten him, he wouldn't let go of a single one of them. If it's just this Sun girl, I'm afraid she won't be a threat to him. At that moment, a familiar voice rang out next to Baizhi. It was a ball of purple foam that flickered with a strange light. It looked like a bunch of floating grapes and was the current form of the god of the grave, who had inherited the teachings of the outer gods of the past. Old Mu, I know what you're worried about, Baizhi said calmly. There was an irreconcilable enmity between the dragon race and the outer gods. Logically speaking, it was impossible for them to cooperate to this extent. However, Baizhi was not a member of the dragon race, and the tomb god was not originally part of the system of the Great Old Ones. Both of them had used their own methods to obtain the power of the 2 strongest factions in the ancient times, but at the same time, they were victims of the same person. As the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. It was not impossible for the Dragon Clan and the Outer Gods to cooperate. He clearly doesn't like this girl. Even if this girl really dies, it won't affect him at all. Why don't you just destroy a few snack stalls instead? The Grave Goddess suggested. I have my ways. Baija chuckled. His silhouette, which was the color of moonlight, was extraordinary. So this time, I'm not just targeting him. I will capture everyone related to him alive and use them as my chess pieces. I see. However, he was not easy to deal with. The same goes for his sister. This time, I have enough confidence. Baija laughed. I can't wait to see him put on that painful mask. Almost at the same time, Jingzhe and Yin Ruo received the latest order from the corporation. It was a list, and they were required to capture the people on the list alive one by one according to the order on the list. No one could be spared. And on this long list, Jingzhe's eyes fell on a last name. Yin Ruo licked the ice cream cone, her pink tongue stained with milky white ice cream, making one's imagination run wild. Well, what are you thinking about? Is there anything strange about this person called Wang Nuan's name? Her surname is Wang, the same surname as the person monk Jindeng mentioned, Jingzhe said. But there are many people with the surname Wang in the world. I know, Jingzhe said, but this person is listed at the end of the list, and there's a special note. The organization said that if you feel that you can't beat him, you can just run. There is no need to fight this person head-on. It can be said that this is the most special existence on this list. Yin Ruo laughed out loud. We haven't fully inherited the power of the giant dragon, so it's normal to encounter a situation where we can't beat him. There is really no need to fight for a short time, but I still want to see what kind of person this is. Since he can be such a special existence, is this person related to the Buddha surnamed Wang that monk Jindeng mentioned? At this time, Jingzhe felt puzzled. His memory was not bad, but it had not been long since he fought with Jindeng that he had forgotten the name he had just heard. He only vaguely remembered that the other's surname was Wang. So Jingzhe guessed that maybe some kind of power of law and order affected this part of his memory. He could drive the law and make the world forget his existence. It seemed that this person was really extraordinary, otherwise he could not have such a skill. Then let's finish this quickly. After a while, Jingzhe looked at the long list and took a deep breath. This list seemed to be arranged in order of strength, and the organization's request was to capture them alive as much as possible. As outstanding laborers, he and Yin Ruo would naturally fulfill their mission. After capturing Hero Gua, Little Peanut, Li Yue, and the others, Jingzhe and Yin Ruo stood at the entrance of Super Chen's family's martial arts dojo. Although they had already restrained their auras when the figures appeared, Super Chen still quickly sensed killing intent. With a somewhat hesitant expression, Super Chen put down the stone block he had been using to train his strength and pushed open the sliding door. He saw a young man in a windbreaker and a little girl in neat clothes standing at the door. It's closed now. You'll have to register for classes tomorrow, said Super Chen. Jingzhe looked at him expressionlessly. I'm sorry, Hiro-cho, Mr. Chun, we need you to come with us. As a descendant of the dragon race, they were almost used to calling others hero. This was practically a fixed pattern, and they had never changed it until now. Take a trip? To where? Super Chen was blank. Looking at Jingzhe's face, which didn't look like a good person's, he felt apprehensive. Don't tell me you want to take me hostage. We don't seem to have any grudges. Why do you want to take me? Jingzhe and Yin Ruo. Super Chen, wait. Aren't you cultivators from Earth? Are you from another planet? Ever since Earth and Divine Tao Star had opened up cooperation, there had been many cases of aliens pretending to be human cultivators, smashing and robbing Earth cultivators. Super Chen had seen similar news, which was why he was apprehensive. Jingzhe and Yin Ruo were also a little surprised. Super Chen had actually guessed 80 to 90% of his questions correctly. Super Chen, you just called me hero. Don't tell me you're the legendary celestial dragons. However, Jingzhe had no intention of letting Super Chen continue asking questions. After knocking Super Chen out with a karate chop, Super Chen was directly sucked into his inner world. So many things had been exposed at once. Yenruo felt like the ice cream cone in his hand wasn't delicious anymore. What should I do? I really want to kill him. Jingze nodded silently. Me too. Chapter 1717. All along, poverty alleviation in the cultivation world had a long way to go. There were many teachers who volunteered to help the poor, and Old Antique was one of them. Because of the special teleportation array, as long as you obtain a volunteer certificate, you could easily use the teleportation array to travel from one city to another and then fly a sword to the area you needed help in. Every weekend, Old Antique had the habit of volunteering to teach in remote areas. On this day, he carried a crate of strawberries to the home of a student he was helping. The simple house was teetering in the wind, as if it would collapse at any moment. He knew that there were too many people in this world who were hiding in corners and stubbornly refused to ask for help, but were in desperate need of help. However, it was impossible for him to help them all on his own, so he could only do one thing at a time and use his actions to influence more people. He only hoped that life wouldn't let down all those who wanted to live. After he was done with everything, Old Antique let out a deep sigh. If possible, he hoped that one day, everyone would have strawberries that they could never finish after leaving the student's simple house. Old Antique used several building-strengthening talismans to coat the teetering house with a layer of film, and it wasn't until he was done with the repairs that he was ready to leave in a huff. Just as he was about to fly away on his sword, there was a loud rumble in the clear sky, and a silver streak of light hacked down, turning into a ball of lightning that landed precisely in front of him. Old Antique reacted quickly and almost subconsciously took a step back. As a famous epic-level killer in the world of killers, he was still a treasured sword and had extremely sharp reflexes. As he took a step back, he threw out several silver needles at the student's vitals. He could sense that the other party had ill intentions and was full of killing intent, so he didn't have any misgivings when he made his move. However, before the needles could get close to the person, they stopped in midair. An electromagnetic barrier stopped the flying needles. Old Antique composed himself and stared warily at Yanxiu. And Jingze, who are you? He could tell that these two people weren't ordinary. Are you Wang Zukong? Jingze said in a cold voice. I need you to come with us. Old Antique frowned. At such a close distance, he actually couldn't sense their breathing, which was already enough to prove how powerful they were. Although they didn't look very old, their combat strength was indeed extraordinary. Regardless of whether he resisted or fled, there would be risks, and he might even bring disaster to the students in the building behind him. He had no idea why the two of them were looking for him, but under such circumstances, he seemed to have no other choice. I can leave with you, but do not hurt the people in the back room. Jingze's face was expressionless, and his voice was cold. Don't worry, he's not on our list. All right, Old Antique nodded. Then, he felt the scene in front of him change, as if he had been swallowed by a force into another space. When he opened his eyes, he was already in a prison cell in the inner world of pure swamp. What amazed him even more was that Super Chun, Hirogwa, Little Peanut, Liu Wei, and the others had actually also been captured. Teacher, why did you come in as well? Seeing that Old Antique had also been brought in, they were all surprised. These two people are very strong. I can't deal with them. If I resist stubbornly, I'm afraid only death awaits me. Old Antique frowned. Why did he bring us all together? Is it to blackmail us? Are we all hostages? Little Peanut asked at that moment. Very likely. Old Antique nodded. He had never seen pure swamp before, and he hated it. These two people also didn't remember their sins, but they had been captured and brought here. Thus, the only possibility was that everyone who had been captured and brought here had a common target, and it was very likely that their ultimate goal was to use them as a threat. It was just that until now, Old Antique still hadn't figured out who on earth this target was. After coming to this conclusion, the group of people in the prison cell pondered. This target should be someone from our class. Hirogwa said, That's not right. Since it's someone from your class, why did you capture me? Liu Wei was very puzzled. Among the people you know in our class, isn't classmate Lotus Sun the closest to you? Little Peanut said. So they captured us to blackmail Rom? Liu Wei guessed. While everyone was puzzled, Super Chin suddenly thought of something at that moment, and he jerked his head up to look at Li Yue. Wait, apart from us and classmate Lotus-san, you should know someone else in our class, right? Also, we just went to Old Street to play together last time. You mean Wang Ling? Li Yue was even more incredulous. No way. Classmate Wang Ling. Isn't he from a poor family? And he's a harmless mascot, capturing us to blackmail him. What are these robbers thinking? Classmate Wang Ling doesn't have anything to give them. Is it also for crispy noodle snacks? This clearly wasn't the time to joke around, but when Hiro Gua heard this, he still couldn't help laughing. Then we're screwed. I'll be honest, if that's really the case, I think Wang Ling will directly give up on us and choose crispy noodle snacks. +1. Little Peanut silently raised his hand in agreement with Hiro Gua's answer. In short, everyone keep calm and wait and see what happens. Don't worry, teacher will definitely keep you safe, Old Antique said solemnly, although it was indeed a little inconceivable at the moment. Based on the current conclusion, it was most likely because of Wang Ling or Lotus-san that they had been captured here. As Wang Ling's teacher, Old Antique had in fact vaguely sensed that Wang Ling was hiding something all along, but the two people outside just now had astonishing battle strength. It was because he had judged that he couldn't escape that he had chosen not to resist and wait and see what would happen. If the purpose of capturing them was to blackmail Wang Ling into submission, then what was Wang Ling's true strength? This was really a thought-provoking question. After Old Antique was captured, Teacher Pan was quickly caught as well. Not a single person related to Wang Ling had escaped. Jingzi and Loathing? Their methods were neat and tidy. Very quickly, there was only one person left on their list, a special target called Wang Wan. This is it. Two people appeared at the entrance of the Wang family's small villa in a flash of lightning. Chapter 17-18. The night was dreary and hazy. Faint moonlight enveloped the only building in eastern wilderness, and the tiles on the top floor of the Wang family's small villa reflected a faint white light. To be cautious, Jingzi used his spiritual senses to sense the aura inside the villa and found nothing unusual. This was just an ordinary residence for an ordinary cultivator's family. He didn't quite understand why Wang Wan on the list had become the target of special treatment. There clearly didn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary here. Annoyed? Sitting on a large cement pipe in the abandoned lot in front of the Wang family's small villa, she started to lick a popsicle with a disinterested expression. Brother Jingzi, can you do it alone? She asked, because it was really too ordinary. Annoyed? She felt that there was no need to make a move. The entrance is there. I'll go alone. Jingzi nodded, then slowly approached and started to knock on the door very politely. In the end, just as he was about to knock with the back of his hand, he suddenly noticed that the eyes of the two gatekeepers in the paintings hanging on the left and right of the door suddenly moved, and they abruptly stared at his face. This was the unparalleled nation knight that he had set up earlier to reinforce the fortifications. One of them was holding a cannon, while the other was holding a Gatling gun. This was a combination with quite fierce firepower. But facing this pair of paintings, Jingzi just curled his lips and couldn't help laughing out loud. Interesting, it's actually this kind of defensive measure. He didn't think much of these two paintings and just felt that this kind of defense was like a child's play, like a fight in which a child kept stepping on the other side's toes. Only a child would be childish enough to step on their toes. Just as he was about to reach out and remove the two paintings, boom. In an instant, a loud explosion rang out, and a basketball-sized cannonball shot out from the painting and hit Jingzi's chest. The huge propelling force almost immediately sent Jingzi flying, and he moved back from where he stood. This power was clearly beyond Jingzi's expectations. Before he could react at all, his feet dug into the ground, creating two deep grooves. Then, in the open space in front of him, a tiny mushroom cloud rose from the ground, and there was a huge explosion. At the same time, the old man holding the Gatling gun also opened fire at this moment. Blue sparks splashed out from the painting, and in a short moment, thousands of psionic bullets were fired. These bullets had their own trajectories in the air, twisting and turning, choosing the most suitable angle to surround them from all directions. This was the Gatling gun kata, which could accurately lock onto every vital part of the body, making it impossible for the targeted party to retreat. The Kingdom Knights were matchless, their coordination great, one holding a cannon, the other a spear. Under this kind of coordinated attack, a suppressive firepower was formed in a short period of time, turning the Wang family's small villa into a sea of flames. Is everything settled? After a full 3 minutes, the two of them stopped at the same time and looked at the bright flames in front of them. They had sensed a deep hostility from the cleansing swamp when it had approached, so they had decisively attacked to stop the enemy. They had thought that the intruders had been killed by the intense firepower. Who would have thought that at this moment, there would suddenly be a thunderclap in the sea of flames in front of them, accompanied by a golden bolt of lightning that fell from the sky, extinguishing the sea of flames in an instant. There was a golden flash on the cleansing swamp's body, which was the mark of the lightning jumping on his body like a snake. The densely packed bullets that had been shot out earlier were all suspended around him, blocked by an electromagnetic force, and not a single bullet could get close to him. How is this possible? This time, it was the Kingdom Knights' turn to reveal a calm and elegant expression. They looked at each other in dismay, not daring to believe what they had just seen. This level of attack was more than enough to kill a Tao god. They had not expected the cleansing swamp to be able to block it so easily. Ancestral level. The countenance of the two old men, who were holding guns and cannons, instantly turned deathly pale. While they were still in a daze, the cleansing swamp had already put on his familiar diamond gloves, aimed at the painting on the door, and snapped his fingers. In an instant, a powerful chaotic force surged out from the painting in an endless stream, causing the unparalleled Kingdom Knight's body to expand to the size of a balloon. Then bang, bang, two sounds rang out in quick succession. Accompanied by heart-wrenching screams. The two paintings instantly exploded and disappeared completely. It was a very tragic scene. The Kingdom Knight had been completely destroyed by the cleansing swamp's diamond gloves and split open on the spot. They tried to struggle, but it was useless. The equipment Wang Ling had given them was already powerful enough, but unexpectedly, they still couldn't defeat the cleansing swamp. At the same time, the other enchanted artifacts in the Wang family's small villa were also trembling. They could clearly sense how powerful the intruder this time was. At that moment, the two dragon descendants had affected the quiet front of the Wang family's small villa, and the atmosphere was filled with a somber air. Father and Mother Wang's realms were too low, and they didn't have much of an understanding of this overwhelming advantage and power. But when they heard the explosions and strange movements outside the villa, as well as the Kingdom Knight's screams, they started to worry a little. What should we do? The child's father. There seems to be a very powerful guy at the door. Mother Wang gripped Father Wang's sleeve tightly, her body trembling uncontrollably. Father Wang's throat bobbed, and he swallowed. It's fine. Ling Ling assured us. It should be fine. In fact, even Father Wang himself didn't dare guarantee anything. After all, Wang Ling had been standing guard at the Wang family's small villa before, but now that he had gone out to run some errands, it was inevitable that the couple would feel a little flustered without this great Buddha guarding them. At that moment, 096, who had transformed into a human form, suddenly came over from afar with Anwan on its back. Wang Wan knew that these two dragon descendants seemed to be coming for her, so she was ready to fight. "Yeah," Anwan said. This time, Lord Ma personally translated for Father and Mother Wang on the side. Spiritual Master Anwan says that she wants to join the fight. Anwan, Mother Wang's expression was grave. But she's still so young. From a mother's perspective, Mother Wang subconsciously objected. In the past, it would have been fine if Wang Ling had been by her side to help her, but now there were two powerful enemies here, and one look was enough to tell that they weren't easy to deal with. Wang Wan was still too young. She had only been born a few days ago. A baby girl who wasn't even a month old, yet had to fight against two dragon descendants, who weren't cabbages that could be found anywhere. But what Mother and Father Wang never expected was that Wang Nuan had a stubborn temper and a strong desire to fight. Without waiting for Father and Mother Wang's consent, the little girl directly tugged 096 rabbit ears and directed 096 to jump out. She directly showed up with a clear target, Jing Zhe. Sitting on 096's shoulder, her little body stretched out a chubby little fist as 096 sprinted forward. Jing Zhe immediately laughed. He never thought that Wang Nuan, who was on the list, was actually just a baby, and a hot-tempered one at that. As soon as they met, she couldn't wait to jump out and beat him up. "Girl, your fist is like cotton. What can it do to me?" He curled the corners of his lips and opened his palm at the same time, trying to catch Wang Nuan's punch. Bang! Then, the moment the fist and palm collided, Jing Zhe's expression instantly changed. Pooh! He was sent flying on the spot and violently spat out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, his arm couldn't stop spasming in excruciating pain. Jing Zhe was so shocked that he couldn't believe that a baby girl could actually be so destructive, and what was even more unbelievable was that his Sequence 3 diamond glove had actually cracked open. Chapter 1719. This was a chaos weapon of a dragon's descendant that had reached the sequence level. It was known as the indestructible diamond, and it was refined from the dragon skeleton that corresponded to the dragon power in his body. However, in front of the girl, it was unable to withstand even a single punch, causing cracks to appear. Something was wrong. Jing Zhe was very decisive. He quickly retreated, and the golden lightning dragon behind him spread open. At the same time, countless bolts of lightning fell nearby, trying to quickly pull away from Wang Nuan. However, Wang Nuan's actions were faster than he imagined. As he retreated, he saw the shadow on the ground suddenly erupt, turning into agile tentacles that chased after him at an extremely fast speed. What ability was this? He was shocked. Jing Zhe did not expect that the flash produced by his lightning dragon descendant would end up benefiting Wang Nuan. The little girl used her Shadow Dao ability to quickly chase after him, but what she captured was a shadow. An instinctive sense of danger immediately surged in his heart, especially at the moment when his shadow was captured by Wang Nuan. Jing Zhe guessed it. Immediately after, he felt his vision turn black, and he was brought into an alternate world. This was Wang Nuan's unique Supreme World, and it was also a Supreme World exclusive to Shadow Dao. Everything in it was no different from Earth, but all the living beings were a mass of black shadows. A world of shadows? Jing Zhe was shocked. At the same time, the person who was captured in this world was Yin Xiu, who was behind him. At this moment, Yin Xiu was also shocked. His mouth also gaped open with incredulity as he stared at the scenes unfolding before his eyes. He was so shocked that one of his ice cream balls dropped onto the ground. No one could have imagined that a baby girl who had just been born for less than a month could actually be so tyrannical. This girl is a great Dao Lord. Jing Zhe's heart trembled. He felt that the battle situation in front of him had suddenly reversed. Having great Dao abilities was not something terrifying. It was not rare for a person to have multiple great Dao, but if it was a great Dao Lord who created this Dao, then he had to think twice. Yin Xiu, we're leaving. After a brief thought, Jing Zhe made a decision. He was very calm. He did not let his emotions get the better of him and insisted on fighting Wang Nuan. As the first dragon to be created, Jing Zhe knew very well how heavy the dragon race's lifeline was. If he were to fight Wang Nuan head-on here, it was unknown who would win, but he felt that it would most likely end in a lose-lose situation. Now was the critical moment of the Dragon Clan's revival, so he calmly believed that there was no need to fight head-on. Although escaping was also a humiliation for the dragon descendants, if they didn't swallow this humiliation now, they might not have another chance in the future. But, regarding Jing Zhe's decision, he was disgusted. Pouting, she actually didn't want to run away. She also wanted to spar with the baby girl in front of her. No buts, no buts. This is an order from the higher-ups, Jing Zhe replied. He didn't want to run away, but he didn't want to admit that he was a coward. so he found this excuse. Originally, in a mission that Bao Bai gave them, Wang Nuan was the most special existence. If the situation was not right, they could choose to retreat. This was Wang Nuan's personal supreme world. If it was anyone else who fell into this place, there was no way they could escape. However, they were dragon descendants. They could use their dragon power to forcefully break open a gap. Heya! Just as they were about to move, Wang Nuan moved even faster than them. The little lass rode on 096, using it as her mode of transportation. It was clearly just a baby's body, but its mobility was astonishing. He was disgusted. Before he could do anything, in the blink of an eye, Wang Nuan's figure had already appeared behind him. That meaty little fist was smashing toward his spine. Jing Zhe's expression changed instantly. He could tell that this was not an ordinary blow. At the same time that the fist was unleashed, there was the sound of landslides and tsunamis. The entire shadow world was trembling with the supreme sound of the Great Tao, mixed with the terrifying power of the Great Tao Master. The little fist had not yet arrived, but it had already made Jing Zhe feel a life-threatening pressure. The overwhelming wind from the fist slapped his back, causing his dragon descendants to tremble like an umbrella in the wind. His entire dragon skeleton could not stop falling in the direction of the wind from the fist, and he could not even fly. This baby was too terrifying. It had only been less than a month, but she was already this strong. In terms of combat strength, this little girl was much stronger than the monk he had seen before. Moreover, he seriously suspected that the Buddha, surnamed Wang, that the monk mentioned was very likely related to the little girl in front of him. Why would such an outrageous person appear on Earth? Where did it come from? Jing Zhe was puzzled. The couple in the villa were clearly just ordinary people. How could they give birth to such a powerful earth cultivator? Could it be? Is it related to the mysterious object in the legends? His mind was filled with boundless reverie, and he suddenly thought of many possible guesses. Although he was afraid, he had to think about it, because if they wanted to restore the dragon clan to its former glory, the girl in front of him and the Buddha, surnamed Wang, might become their biggest obstacle. Boom! This punch was like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves, hitting his spine solidly. Jing Zhe spat out a large mouthful of blood, but he did not suffer any serious injuries. At the critical moment, the black umbrella on his back blocked another blow for him. At the same time, as the fist approached, the black umbrella on his back blocked another attack for him. He spat lava from his mouth and instantly formed a powerful lava barrier. However, the moment it was completed, Wang Nuan punched out almost at the same time, directly breaking through the barrier and hitting Jing Zhe. Although it still made him vomit blood, at least it had some protective effect. If it wasn't for Black Umbrella and Yin Xiang, Jing Zhe suspected that Wang Nuan's spine would have been broken. Yin Xiang, let's go. With a loud shout, he pulled away from Wang Nuan again. At the same time, he opened the black umbrella on his back, and a chaotic vortex formed under his feet. The god-devouring umbrella opened up a tiny opening in this supreme world. It was only the size of a mouse hole, but Jing Zhe still went in with Yin Xiang. Without any hesitation, he went in. This time, Wang Nuan didn't give chase. This was her first time fighting with people with the power of the Dragon Clan, and she felt that they would be good combat training targets. But from a fight, just now, Wang Nuan could sense that their powers hadn't been fully activated. So she didn't give chase, and instead planned to give them another chance to grow. It would be a pity if she toyed with them until they died. After driving away the two dragon descendants, Wang Nuan left her supreme world. At the same time, she released Ajua, Zhou, and Kimia Ryoko, who had been protecting her supreme world. Ajua, Zhou, and Kimia Ryoko were the only exceptions, and Wang Ling had personally arranged for them to be protected by Wang Nuan. He was mainly worried that these two dragon descendants would cause trouble for them, which could be considered a privilege of odd Zhua's as a disciple. As for Zhou and Kimia Ryoko, because of their inseparable relationship with Ajua, they were also protected. After all, the battle strength of the dragon descendants was astonishing. Apart from Wang Ling and Wang Nuan, no one could deal with them. Thank you, Martial Ant. After being released, Ajwa hurriedly bowed to Wang Nuan in thanks, and at the same time gave Kimi Ryoko and Josie, who were still staring blankly on the side, a meaningful look. Thank you, spiritual master Nuan. The two of them bowed, their minds blank at the same time. They had been hiding inside little girl Nuan's body the whole time, and were so shocked that they couldn't speak as they watched her hammer the dragon descendants. You're usually pretty smart. Why didn't you react? Hearing Josie and Kimi Ryoko call spiritual master Wang Nuan, Ajwa couldn't help but smile. Logically speaking, Kimi Ryoko was now his girlfriend, so it was only natural that she should be protected. But why was Josie being protected? It wasn't hard to analyze. Ajwa thought that Wang Ling had already indirectly acknowledged Josie as his disciple. Hurry up and greet Grand Marshal Ant. He stared at the dazed Josie and smiled at Wang Nuan. From this day onwards, Josie was also one of them. Chapter 1720. Yeah. In front of the Wang family's small villa, Wang Nuan sighed with emotion as she looked in the direction in which the two dragons had fled. She pinched 096 rabbit ears, and 096 obediently let her do as she pleased. At the same time, Lord Ma, who was the infant language interpreter, swiftly appeared next to Wang Nuan and accurately translated what she said. He said that Wang Nuan had sighed just now because the two dragons were too weak and there was no point in fighting them. Everyone present trembled when they heard this. If the descendants of the dragon clan were too weak, how could other people live? As expected of my martial aunt, Ajwa bowed, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. In some sense, Wang Nuan's rate of growth was even more astonishing than Wang Ling's back then. She grew almost every day and in stages. Back when she had been born, she had taught the grave god a lesson. In just a few short days, her battle strength had undergone a qualitative leap, and she was even more refined than before. Needless to say, if anyone else found out about this, it would definitely shock the world and even the entire universe. In particular, those ancient people who knew what the ancient dragon clan was would all be so shocked that their jaws would drop. At the height of their power, the dragon clan had been supreme existences that could tear apart outer gods with their bare hands, and were so strong that no words could describe them. Sothith was ranked second among the outer gods, but if the leader of the dragon clan, the dark devouring dragon, had existed back then, a mere Sothith wouldn't have been a match for it. Now, these two dragon descendants who had inherited the power of a giant dragon and perfectly inherited the dragon clan's bloodline, powerful existences at the level of the Earth ancestor, they had been sent fleeing with one punch from a baby less than half a month old. What a disgrace. As far as I know, the dragon clan is a race with very strong self-esteem. They will definitely take revenge. Marshal Ant, be prepared, Ajwa said as he bowed. Yeah, Wang Nuan replied. Lorma translated. She said that it doesn't matter how many come. Also, she's always wanted to taste dragon meat dumplings. As expected of Grand Marshal Ant. On the side, Josie almost knelt down. In the last few days, his worldview had been completely overturned. Before, he had regarded Ajwa as a hero, but now, he had several more people to worship. Furthermore, he was well aware that these people could only be worshipped as gods, and he would never be able to surpass them. After seeing that Wang Nuan had smoothly finished her fight, Wang Ling, who was inside the sword spirit space, breathed a slight sigh of relief. The little girl was very strong, and had single-handedly beaten up 2 dragons until they fled. He was also a little amazed at his little sister's growth. Really? The corner of Wang Ying's lips curled up. She couldn't help but laugh. I've already said that you don't have to worry about that girl. That girl will definitely be able to stand up. She's very strong. Now, their top priority was to find the mastermind behind all these plans. The revival of the Dragon Clan was one of the moves in Bao by Group's grand plan, and targeting Lotus Sun was also a crucial part of it. Then what would they do after targeting Lotus Sun? What would they do after gaining control of her body? As for this point, it was only a guess. In any case, it was definitely not a good thing. That young lady called Chun Xiaomu seems to be coming over. Lotus Sun tried her best to maintain her composure as she paid close attention to the changes outside. The moment the people of the thought plague gathered in her villa moved in one direction like a zombie army, Lotus Sun immediately knew that their operation had begun. Don't be afraid, Miss Rome. If they want to invade your body, don't resist. In any case, we're here, Death Heavenly Tao said. They were now stalling for time. They were hiding in Lotus Sun's sword spirit space and completely sealing off their auras, mainly because they wanted to extract more information. I won't be afraid. Lotus Sun nodded slightly. She wasn't really afraid. She was just a little nervous, afraid that she wouldn't perform well and cause trouble for Wang Ling. After all, Wang Ling was currently in her sword spirit space. In a sense, he had also entered her body and was following her around. The person she liked had entered her body. What a terrible line. What kind of nonsense was she thinking? Lotus Sun felt that it had to be because she had been with Sun Yinger for too long that her thoughts had gradually started to change, and she had become unclean. Sun Yinger, after sitting quietly in the room for a while, the bedroom door was gently pushed open, and a red ball rolled in at an opportune time. Following, it was Chun Xiaomu, who had accidentally barged into the room while pretending to chase the ball. It had to be said that the people with the thought plague were all great actors. With this kind of acting, it wouldn't be a problem at all for them to win Best Actor and Best Actress awards. But the most awkward acting in the world was when you thought you were acting very realistically, but the truth was that everyone else knew you were just putting on an act. Sister, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to come in. The person with the thought plague spoke through Chun Xiaomu's body as he gazed at Lotus Sun's back as she sat alone at the desk. Looking at her defenseless posture, he felt that she had already matured completely. Stupid woman, give me your body. Then, with a roar in his heart, he stamped his foot and pounced at Lotus Sun's back. Using Chun Xiaomu's body, he moved extremely quickly. The moment he pounced, he separated a ball of light with 3 tentacles from Chun Xiaomu's body and instantly attached it to the back of Lotus Sun's neck. The attack was extremely precise, and his aim was to invade Lotus Sun's body. She never thought that her plan would actually go so smoothly. Logically speaking, this woman who had 9 Heavenly Tao magic cubes shouldn't be so weak. Just as he was feeling suspicious, he felt his body begin to fuse with Lotus Sun's, and just when he thought that he was about to gain complete control of Lotus Sun's body, all of a sudden, the world in front of him started to brighten. What's going on? He was clearly stunned. At the same time, he looked at his own body and was stunned to find that he hadn't turned into Lotus Sunday. He was still like a maggot with 3 tentacles on his lower body. Impossible. How could this be? The thought plague clearly didn't dare to believe it. He had clearly attached himself to her body, and according to past experience, he would only need less than 2 seconds to gain complete control of her body. But now he had actually landed in a strange space, in a world of light. There were many mountains nearby, and in the sky, there were actually 6 suns. He was greatly alarmed. He rubbed his eyes, and soon realized that those weren't suns at all. Those were 6 freaking pairs of eyes. 2 of them were dead fish eyes. He had indeed attached himself to Lotus Sun's body. But just as he was about to invade her, Wang Ling and the other 2, who were lying in ambush in the sword spirit space, had intercepted him. Then, this thought plague person was suppressed in Wang Ling's palm. He was being watched by Wang Ling, Wang Ying, and Death Heavenly Tao. Chapter 1721. The thought plague wouldn't think that it would be intercepted before it could even enter Lotus Sun's body. This was clearly a trap, but it was already too late to say anything now. According to the original plan, the 90-odd thought plague on their side would be the first to enter Lotus Sun's body. After confirming that everything was fine, the rest of the thought plague would enter Lotus Sun's body one after another and ultimately work together to suppress it. But now it knew that it had been tricked. The most outrageous thing was that after learning that it had been intercepted, Lotus Sun immediately opened the window and called out, "Come in, brothers." The thought plague, which had invaded Lotus Sun's body, first never thought that Lotus Sun would actually be impersonating it. What happened next was like the Calabash brothers saving their grandpa. When the other thought plague lurking in the villa heard Lotus Sun's call, they thought that their plan had succeeded, so they left their bodies and started to enter Lotus Sun's body. Then, one by one, they all landed in Wang Ling's palm. At that moment, under the gazes of Wang Ling, Wang Ying, and Death Heavenly Tao, the thought plague trembled as if they were surrounded by three great Buddhas. "You have a serial number, right?" Wang Ying asked as he looked at the thought plague, which had left Qin Xiaomu's body at the very beginning and intended to invade Lotus Sunday. The thought plague snorted and refused to say a word. They had a self-detonation mechanism, which meant that if they couldn't complete their mission, they could end their own lives. Unfortunately, they had been suppressed by Wang Ling as soon as they entered, and their maggot-like bodies couldn't move. "You don't want to talk, right? I have plenty of ways to make you talk." Wang Ying's lips curled into her signature devilish smile. "Your Excellency Wang Ying, what do you want?" Death Heavenly Tao had a bad feeling. "Nothing. I'm suddenly hungry and want to eat something," Wang Ying said as she crossed her arms. Then Lotus Sun's voice rang out in the sword spirit space, and she asked cooperatively, "President Ying, what do you want to eat? I'll get the head made to prepare it." "Mustard squid, charcoal grilled squid, charcoal grilled squid tentacles, green pepper fried squid, braised squid." Wang Ying ordered a series of dishes, all of which were related to squid. Lotus Sun, Wang Ling, and Death Heavenly Tao. Everyone knew that the symbol of most of the creatures in the Great Old Ones was the iconic squid-like tentacles. Even the Mind Plague was the same. Although it looked no different from a maggot, it still retained a tentacle-like structure at the end. Even after they possessed a person's body, they could find the tentacle imprint in the pupils of the possessed person. Other than ordering a bunch of squid-related dishes, Wang Ying also planned to establish a mental link and build the same mental space with the 97 thought plague patients. The ultimate goal was actually to share the sense of taste. In other words, when Wang Ying was eating the squid dishes, the thought plague would also taste the squid dishes. This method was truly devilish. It could be said that in the true sense of the word, it was not very lethal, but it was extremely insulting. Although the Great Old Ones had nothing to do with the squid, they still had the illusion that they were eating their own people. "Are you even human?" The leader of the thought plague cursed. "Sorry, I'm not human to begin with." Wang Ying spread his hands and smiled. He was Wang Ling's shadow to begin with, and in theory indeed wasn't human. So Wang Ying didn't feel anything about this. "How about it? Still not willing to talk? I have other ways." Wang Ying stared at it without the slightest bit of pity in his eyes. The thought plague patient could tell that Wang Ying wasn't the type to negotiate. If they didn't do as the other party said, they would definitely be severely punished. Furthermore, the other party's punishment wouldn't be an ordinary one, but a crooked method specially designed to target different groups of people. Letting them taste the taste of squid, this kind of psychological rejection was more painful than directly dying. Thus, the leader of the thought plague patient sighed and finally gave up resisting. "My work number is 003. 003. Wang Ying said, "Speak clearly, what's 003? There were 6 thought plague patients born from the first batch of mothers, and I'm number 003. Replied the thought plague patient with work number 003. Everything was as Wang Ling had guessed earlier. He had already felt that the thought plague patient in Qin Xiaomu's body wasn't ordinary, and now his guess was proven right. "That is to say, do you know where the mother is?" Wang Ying asked. "Yes," 003 replied. "But it's useless even if you can find the mother through me." "What do you mean?" Death Heavenly Tao frowned. 003. The thought plague is a parasitic Great Old Ones with a mother that continuously produces new thought plague patients. But the mother isn't the only one. Even if you find the mother and kill it, the mother can transfer its power in an instant. It can create a new mother. After the original mother is cut off from me, I don't know the location of the newly created mother." Although Wang Ling had long since expected that these thought epidemics, which had appeared out of nowhere, wouldn't be easy to deal with as part of the old ruler's system. This method of transferring the mother's authority was indeed beyond his expectations. That was to say, if they didn't deal with it cleanly this time, it was very likely that the mother would slip through the net, unless the mother could be completely killed so that it wouldn't have a chance to transfer its power. But to 003, this was an impossible task. There are many ways to transfer the mother's power. You can't guard against it at all. 003 said, also, you know that Lord Sothith is supporting this from behind the scenes. Unless you have a way to eradicate the host who has been invaded by the mother, make him completely disappear from all the world lines and timelines, the thought plague will exist forever. Wang Ling's eyebrows twitched slightly at these words, because he felt that this method sounded a little familiar, and it sounded even more like revenge, because this was what he had done to Baizhi back then. He had erased all of Baizhi's existence from all the world lines. The only thing he hadn't taken into account was that the other party's resentment was so strong and deep that he could actually communicate with the will of the universe and forcibly fill in the gaps. We have our own ways. It's not something you should be concerned about. Death Heavenly Tao snorted. At that moment, 003 suddenly laughed sinisterly. I don't understand. Even if you really have a way to kill the mother in one go, can you really do it? He's currently possessing the body of that scientist called Wang Ming. If you want to uproot us and prevent human cultivators from being enslaved, then you have to completely wipe out this person called Wang Ming. Chapter 1722. Wang Ling knew that everything in front of him had started from Baizhi's revenge on him. Back then, Wang Ling had destroyed all the Baizhi in the world lines and timelines, completely erasing his existence. The solution he was facing now was shockingly similar to that one. If Wang Ling really wanted to replicate the method of total destruction, then the 7 million or so death substitute talismans he had might not be enough. World lines and timelines were massive. As an independent individual, each person was allocated tens of millions to hundreds of millions of parallel spaces. In the course of a person's normal life, whenever they were conflicted about something or ran into a problem that was difficult to decide on, they would split into a new world line and timeline. Over time, these split world lines and timelines would accumulate over time, increasing in number. It could be said that one gave birth to three, and three gave birth to all things. Let's use an analogy. Today, when an author was conflicted about whether to update his novel with 2,000 words or 20,000 words, this author had already split into a new world line and had an additional parallel space of himself. Then, this split author would think and make a choice as he grew up, and thus split again. So according to this theory, the most terrifying people were those with dysphoria, because they had too many choices. When it was difficult to choose, they would split into countless individuals all at once. In the end, one person might have as many as hundreds of millions or even billions of parallel spaces. The number of parallel spaces that Wang Ming possessed was perhaps even more than that. The brain deduction technique allowed Wang Ming to frequently explore all kinds of choices, and after his brain's calculations, he would ultimately come up with the best choice. This process, in fact, also exacerbated the splitting of parallel spaces. Thus, if Wang Ling was to be completely erased from this universe, he would have to destroy the parent parasite in his body, and then resurrect the Wang Ming in all the parallel spaces. Wang Ling estimated that he would need to prepare at least 10 billion death substitute talismans. However, even if he worked overtime to produce this number of death substitute talismans, it might still be difficult to achieve in a short time. So what on earth should he do? But now, in order to ensure that the thought plague could be completely destroyed, this seemed to be the only way. This is a losing battle that is destined to fail. There's no way you could defeat Lord Sothith and Mr. Bai. At that moment, number 003 suddenly let out a mocking laugh. Humans are creatures with complicated emotions. If you can't get rid of them, you'll never be able to become stronger. Emotions? These words enlightened Wang Ling. He had originally thought that he was an emotionless creature, All along, he had never shown too much emotion on any matter. But now, just now, he was actually thinking about whether there was an alternative solution. So, was he also a person with emotions? In the sword spirit space, Wang Ling looked a little absent-minded as he sat down cross-legged and quietly stared at the suppressed thought plague in his palm. Wang Ling, what's wrong with him? Lotus Sun could see his bewilderment. According to her notes in her little notebook, when Wang Ling stared at something in a daze, it usually meant that he was perplexed about something, just like how he often struggled with what his average score should be during exams. It's nothing. It's just a normal fantasy of a Chinibu. Wang Ying sighed. We don't have enough death substitution talismans now. If we completely erase Brother Ming, we might be able to eliminate the risk of being spread by the thought plague. But Mr. Ming will also cease to exist. Is there no other way? Lotus Sun asked. We can only wait and see. If Mr. Ming has the ability to regain control of his body, it won't be so troublesome. Wang Ying said, but his opponent is the Heartless Ancestor, an ancient powerhouse who relies on his brain for a living. Even if he's injured, it won't be easy for Mr. Ming to contend with him. Death Heavenly Dao frowned. But we can't drag this out any longer. We're now racing against time. The longer we drag it out, the wider the thought plague will spread. There's always a way. Wang Ying spread her hands and said helplessly, if there's really no other way, we'll have to trouble Mr. Ming. Even if we can't save all the Mr. Ming in the parallel spaces, at the very least, we'll be able to save a small number of them. In the depths of the spirit space was a sea ravaged by a storm. Startling waves crashed against an ancient ghost ship as it bobbed up and down. It had already completely lost its course and was drifting along in this sea full of murderous intent and storms. As the cabin shook continuously, Wang Ming gradually regained consciousness. Damn it! He rubbed his head, feeling a headache coming on. Then, he violently lost his balance and fell onto the wooden wall of the cabin. The torrential rain poured down and poured into his body, drenching all his clothes. Wang Ming knew that he no longer had control of his body. At the same time, he hadn't expected the virus that the Heartless Ancestor and the Thought Plague had planted in him would actually be so tyrannical. He grabbed the mast and wandered around on the choppy sea for who knew how long, until the wind finally calmed down. I have to think of a way to regain control, Wang Ming muttered soundlessly. He hadn't given up thinking yet. The last time he had been trapped in the spirit space was on the journey to Beast King's remains. He and Ghost Headblade had fallen into the spirit space together, and then he had relied on the scrap floating on the surface of the spirit sea to piece together a mecha armor to suppress Ghost Headblade and successfully escape. Wang Ming was already very familiar with the operation of escaping, but it was clear that escaping this time would be more difficult than the last time. The storm dissipated, and the sea was filled with fog, making it impossible to see in which direction to go. Wang Ming clearly knew that the ghost ship he was in now wasn't the original ship in his spirit space. Everyone's spirit space had a sea like this, and the person who controlled the spirit space played the role of the captain. Wang Ming's original ship was a giant aircraft carrier the size of 50 aircraft carriers. But now he had clearly been exiled. The giant aircraft carrier had changed owners, and the Heartless Ancestor had become its new helmsman. At that moment, Wang Ming grit his teeth and started to search for the cockpit in this ghost ship. He planned to rely on his own strength to return to the original giant aircraft carrier. The moment he opened the cockpit door, a slightly disheveled figure suddenly staggered out and threw himself into Wang Ming's arms. It's you? Wang Ming never thought that he would actually run into Shouchong here. It seemed they had been exiled together. The error-free chapter of the daily life of the Immortal King will continue to be updated on the mobile game bar. There are no advertisements on the site, so please collect and recommend the mobile game bar. If you like the daily life of the Immortal King, please collect. The daily life of the Immortal King mobile game bar is the fastest to update. Chapter 1723. In fact, while meeting Shouchong here was a little unexpected for Wang Ming, it could also be said to be reasonable. Back then, In order to reactivate the god brain, the heartless patriarch had deliberately transferred and then devoured Shochung's will. That was to say, in fact, a small part of the heartless patriarch's spiritual space belonged to Shochung. Now that the heartless patriarch had invaded Wang Ming's spiritual world, Shochung had naturally been brought in as well. "How are you? Can you hold on?" Wang Ming crouched down and took Shochung's pulse. He looked extremely weak and pale, and even his body was so thin that it could almost be called skin and bones. It was hard for Wang Ming to imagine how on earth he had managed to hold on during this period of time. Shochung raised his tired eyes to stare at the man standing next to him and said in a low voice, I'm so hungry." Wang Ming thought for a moment, then began to say seriously, "In the cold we eat rain. The grass is luxuriant. The vermilion seedlings are reflected in the wind. The willows reflect the embankment. When we have a home to return to, the cuckoo shall not cry in my ear." Wang Ming, alone in a strange land. Every festive season I miss my family. Far away, I know that my brother has climbed to the heights and planted dogwood everywhere. One less person. Shochung, ? Wang Ming. Two orioles sing on a green willow. A row of egrets soar into the blue sky. 1,000 autumn snows on the window. A Dongwu ship moored at the door. Shochung. Wang Ming. The spring wind of reform blows everywhere. The people of Huaxia have worked hard. Shochung. Wang Ming recited a dozen or so poems in a row, and Shochung's complexion actually improved a lot under the infusion of these ancient poems. Not only that, even his thin body gradually began to fill out as he regained his spirit. Strange, how can this be? Seeing that Shochung had recovered, Wang Ming finally breathed a sigh of relief. It's just as I thought. We're now in the spiritual space, so what we naturally need is spiritual food. Shochung was suddenly enlightened. I see. So I just need to keep reciting poems? In theory. Wang Ming nodded. I'm very curious. How have you been holding on these past few days? Drinking water. Shochung said, I realize that the water in this spiritual space doesn't seem to be seawater. It's not salty, and it's drinkable. Is there a problem? No, there's no problem at all. I'll just recite the poem after this. This water is not nutritious. Wang Ming's eyes twitched as he spoke. He never thought that one day, the water in his brain could actually save a person. It could be called a medical miracle. After the two of them calmed down in the cabin, Wang Ming looked at him and asked, How much do you know about the God brain? Or do you know anything about the God brain? I've only heard some rumors from my senior sister Feng Chu, but I don't know if they're true or not. If it wasn't for Wu Xan manipulating the situation behind the scenes to take me away and absorb me into his spiritual space, perhaps I would never have been able to prove this truth in my entire life. In such a spiritual space, the master of the spiritual space is the God, which is the same concept as the core world of cultivators. However, the God brain is just too domineering. Even if it's just an incomplete part, it's still like a maggot in a tarsal bone. It can steal other people's space for its own use. How terrifying! Shochung sighed as he spoke. As he said this, he was in fact greatly shocked by the size of Wang Ming's spiritual space. He knew that Wang Ming wasn't a cultivator, but an ordinary human who wasn't a cultivator could actually expand his spiritual space as vast as the sea. This was something that many cultivators who majored in spiritual-type spells might not be able to do. The last thing I'm afraid of is a challenge. Wang Ming laughed. This is my spiritual space to begin with. It won't be that easy for him to take it away. Are you sure you could take it back? Shochung hesitated. After all, his opponent was an ancient being. Even if his body was incomplete, he had now successfully become the master of this spiritual space. If Wang Ming was given a little more time, with the other party's God brain fully recovered, they wouldn't be able to retaliate even if they wanted to. I already had this idea at first. Now that you're here, the chances of us snatching it back are even higher. Wang Ming said confidently, How about it? Do you want to join hands with me? If we snatch it back later, I have a way to separate you from my body, reconstruct a body for you, and bring you back to life. You probably don't want to stay in someone else's body forever, right? Of course. Shochong nodded. I know you, so I believe you have the ability. But the point is, what should we do now? It's very simple. We just need to sink that giant aircraft carrier. When the time comes, our attack ship will once again become the master ship of this spiritual space. But that's your giant aircraft carrier. I saw it before. It has the equivalent of 50 aircraft carriers, which is the size of an island. How can it be so easy to sink? That's my ship. When I built it, I left a back door in it. As long as a shell hits a critical spot, it can start the self-destruct sequence, Wang Ming said. Even so, where do we get the materials to build it? The only materials we have now are this broken ghost ship, Shochong said. This was indeed a tricky problem. They were now exiled to a very distant area. Unlike when they had drifted on the raft with Ghost Headblade, they couldn't directly rely on picking up trash from the surface of the sea to create inventions. Do you know about the abandoned sea? At that moment, Wang Ming looked at Shochong and asked, There's an abandoned sea like this in every hot spiritual space. The so-called abandoned sea could also be called the sea of rotten ideas or the sea of chicken rib inventions. Scientific research was a path that constantly sought progress through exploration, and before something could be successfully developed, there would often be many failures first. Apart from that, in the research and exploration of cultivation science, there were times when scientists would be invited to create some chicken rib inventions and develop all kinds of IQ tax-deductible products in order to satisfy their vile interests or to raise funds for their own research experiments. Wang Ming felt that Shochong was more experienced than him in this regard. These so-called rotten ideas and chicken rib inventions would ultimately form something like a waste recycling station in these people's spiritual spaces, which was the abandoned sea. The abandoned sea, no. I don't have such a thing. My inventions have always been useful. They definitely aren't chicken rib products. Shochong crossed his arms and lowered his head, looking unwilling to admit it. TSK, don't be like that, Mr. Shochong. Every scientist has a few failed inventions, and so do I. You don't need to belittle yourself. Now that our spiritual space is attached to the same space, those things in the sea of abandonment may not all be yours. They might also be mine. Wang Ming knew that for Shochong, this might be a public execution, but at this critical juncture, there really wasn't any other way. So, if you agree, give me your hand. With our brainwaves combined in this state, it shouldn't be a problem for us to sense the abandoned sea, Wang Ming said helplessly. Ha ha ha, that's right. It might also be yours. At this thought, Shochong couldn't help being happy. All right, then I'll sense the existence of this sea. Then he felt reassured and gave his hand to Wang Ming. Time flowed relatively slowly in the spiritual space. An hour in the outside world might only be a minute of thought in the spiritual space. Just like that, the two of them steered the ghost ship over the sea for about 20 hours before they found the legendary abandoned sea. Wang Ming and Shochong gradually saw it. A large number of crappy inventions were floating in this sea. Wang Ming used the boat's fishing net to randomly fish up a crappy invention. It was a very strange-looking doll that looked like a piggy bank. Wang Ming remembered that this seemed to be a weight loss product that had been very popular online a while ago, called the Fat Loss Piggy Bank. It was said that anyone who felt guilty after eating a big meal could put a 1 yuan coin into this doll. Then, this doll would start to shake like a crazy animal for a whole 10 minutes. It was said that in 30 minutes, it could help you lose 600 calories, which was equivalent to running for an hour. Ha ha ha! You didn't invent this thing, did you? It's obviously useless. Shochong laughed out loud. Wang Ming? Of course, it was impossible for Wang Ming to invent such a useless thing. But for the sake of team harmony, he could only smile awkwardly as he casually stuffed the doll into Shochong's hand. He prepared to continue casting his fishing net to fish up these crappy inventions floating in the sea to see if there were any usable parts. In the end, as soon as the doll was in Shochong's hand, a very sharp electronic baby voice suddenly rang out. Daddy! This doll-shaped fat lost piggy bank suddenly shouted at Shochong. Who's your daddy? Shoucheng was utterly alarmed. The doll shouted even more vigorously as it explained excitedly, "Daddy, Daddy, have you forgotten? You invented me." At that moment, the air suddenly froze. Chapter 1724. Wang Ming and Shoucheng hadn't expected the slap in the face to come so abruptly. Neither of them had expected these lousy inventions floating in the sea of abandon to actually have the ability to recognize their owners through voice. In the end, Shoucheng's face twitched as he tossed the doll back into the sea with a mournful "daddy" as it faded into the distance. Wang Ming was silent. He felt that this might be the legendary, benevolent father and filial son. In fact, as Wang Ming had said, scientists would more or less come up with some useless inventions that people couldn't understand on the path of scientific research and development and cultivation. However, Wang Ming felt that this was indeed the first time he had seen something completely useless like Shoucheng's, because he was well aware of how many useless little gadgets he had invented for fun in the past. Probably no less than 200. These were all little gadgets he had created in his spare time for fun, but there were now far more than 200 of them floating in the sea of abandoned. There were at least hundreds of thousands of them. Initially, to comfort Shoucheng, Wang Ming had wanted to find the gadgets he had invented back then to give Shoucheng a little psychological balance. In the end, when he threw a fishing net down and pulled it up, it was all Shoucheng's sons. "Shoucheng, are you short of money?" Wang Ming was blank as he asked. When he thought about it carefully, the reason why Shoucheng could come up with so many useless inventions was actually because of one word: sponsor partnerships. There were actually quite a number of civilian cultivation scientists like Shoucheng who relied on inventing products that taxed IQ to obtain research funding. It was just that Shoucheng was a relatively successful example. I recorded videos of each of my inventions. I just didn't expect my assistant to accidentally post a video of me making a brainwave spirit sword controller online, and it caused a sensation on Bilibili. Shoucheng laughed bitterly. As a video up master now, I take the creative incentive program, split the traffic, and occasionally accept advertisements from game companies. It's indeed very profitable. Previously, Bilibili even invited me to the Top 100 Up Masters Award ceremony. To put it bluntly, it's all for research funding, so I threw caution to the wind. "So, what are you researching?" Wang Ming was curious. If it was just an ordinary research project, it shouldn't need so much funding. As far as he knew, Shoucheng had received more than 20 billion yuan in research funding from Kamiya Ryoko and Lotus Sunday. One could only imagine the secrecy and complexity of the research behind such a large amount of funds. "I don't want to talk about it for now." Shoucheng coughed and said, "But I did encounter some obstacles. If I can really escape, maybe I will invite you to participate in the research of this project." "Can you tell me a little about what it is about?" Wang Ming asked. "New energy development," Shoucheng said. It's a promising research project." Wang Ming nodded. From this perspective, he felt that the direction of Shoucheng's research was in fact similar to the direction in which he was researching the new Dao Talisman seal for Wang Ling. Everyone knew that Wang Ling's spirit power was increasing day by day, and had always maintained extremely high spirit power fluctuations. In theory, as long as Wang Ling could release his spirit power limitlessly, he would be able to achieve a relatively balanced state. But given the spirit power in Wang Ling's body, releasing it at will was definitely out of the question. If he didn't control it properly, it could cause secondary damage to the Earth's environment and even the universe's environment. The method that Wang Ming had thought of was in fact similar to the legend of Yu the Great taming the flood. As the saying went, it was better to release it than to block it. But the truth was that if he blocked and released at the same time, the effect might be even better. Thus, Wang Ming's current idea was to seal part of Wang Ling's spirit power and guide the other part of his body. Furthermore, he could make use of the spirit power that flowed out and maybe even contribute to the development of the environment. And this was Wang Ming's ideal model for developing a new version of the Dao Talisman seal. If he could succeed, he felt that he could achieve eternity. So in some sense, Wang Ming felt that Shoucheng's secret research was incomparably suited to him. In the future, the two of them might really have a chance to work together vigorously. But right now, Wang Ming just wanted to get out of here as soon as possible. He didn't ask Shoucheng about his research anymore, because he knew that this was a sensitive issue and that asking too much might affect their tacit teamwork. I finally found it. After sailing the Sea of Abandonment for a long time and fishing up many of Shoucheng's inventions, Wang Ming finally found what he wanted. It was a third-generation humanoid mecha armor based on Wang Ling, and was also known as Wang Ling 291. Shoucheng was stunned on the spot, because he somehow felt that he had seen this humanoid mecha armor somewhere before. "This is my younger brother," Wang Ming said. Wang Ming said, "Since you were swallowed by the Heartless Patriarch, your thoughts will also merge for a short time. You might have seen some scenes of my younger brother fighting the Heartless Patriarch. So that's how it is." Shoucheng suddenly understood. "I've been drifting on this ghost ship for a long time, and indeed saw a similar young man in my muddle-headed dreams. It turns out that it was a scene of the Heartless Patriarch fighting your younger brother. They've also made a mistake." Wang Ming smiled. "The Heartless Patriarch absolutely didn't expect our willpower to be so tenacious. We didn't completely synchronize with his mental space because of his invasion, and even planned to secretly carry out a vigorous counterattack in the Sea of Abandonment. If we regain sovereignty later, we can retrieve the Heartless Patriarch's memories and see what he wants to do." "That's right. This might be a surprise." Shoucheng nodded. But very quickly, his mind suddenly turned. "Wait, you said that the young man fighting the Heartless Patriarch is your younger brother? The Heartless Patriarch is an immortal. How old are you? How old is your younger brother?" "Cough, that's not the point. Let's work together first. I'll find a chance to explain to you about my younger brother." Wang Ming smiled, then stared at the third-generation humanoid mecha armor in front of him. As you can see, this third-generation humanoid mecha armor is version 291. However, it failed the mobility and mobility tests and didn't meet the preset standards, so it's considered a failure. But it's not completely unusable. Shoucheng crouched down and stroked the smooth metal lines of the mecha armor as he nodded thoughtfully. "Even if it can be used, it still looks a little too small. I'm afraid it won't be easy to sink your giant aircraft carrier. So my idea is to dismantle the core of the third-generation humanoid mecha armor," Wang Ming said. Wang Ming said, "Then we'll combine our strength and build an even bigger one." "Do you think you're assembling a Gundam?" Shoucheng broke out in a sweat. "Besides, even if we can make such a big part, it'll be very difficult to assemble it." "That's not necessarily true. It's not like 291. One can't be used at all. As long as you wear this set, you'll have the power to assemble giant parts." Saying this, Wang Ming had already pressed the button on 291. 291 automatically disassembled itself and slowly attached itself to his body like fish scales. Then he shouted at the surface of the sea, "Son, grandson, where are you?" As soon as he finished speaking, buzz, bang, two flashes of light appeared on the distant sea surface. Two more humanoid mechas turned into shooting stars and instantly appeared at Wang Ming and Shoucheng's feet. Shoucheng was shocked. "This is Wang Ming. These are 292 and 293. In theory, they are indeed the son and grandson of 291. Put this on the sun first." Chapter 1725. While Wang Ming and Shoucheng were preparing to launch a mighty counterattack, Wang Ling was lost in thought about Wang Ming. Without sacrificing Wang Ming, it seemed that apart from trusting that he could come out on his own and waiting, there was no other way for the time being. The thoughtless ancestor had invaded Wang Ming's body together with the parent body of the thought plague. Wang Ling felt that if he forcibly intervened, he would definitely alert the enemy and cause the other party to deal with it. At that time, the thought plague might directly escape, and once a cunning eternal being like the thoughtless ancestor confirmed that he had no chance of survival, there was an 80 to 90% chance that he would self-destruct and completely destroy that mental space. So, what on earth should he do? Wang Ling pondered all sorts of options and realized that none of them seemed to work, and he gradually started to feel a little irritated. Then, like a clay ox disappearing into the sea, this sudden irritation was completely swallowed up by a mysterious force, and Wang Ling became that calm Wang Ling again. That Wang Ling who always looked expressionless and was as calm as an ancient well. This wasn't the first time his emotions had been swallowed up. Wang Ming had clearly told him earlier that this was a problem with the talisman. This was because while the talisman seal was suppressing his psionic power, it was also suppressing his mood to a certain extent. This was because psionic power changed according to the rise of certain emotions. For example, when Wang Ling felt irritable and angry, his spirit power would reach an abnormal level, so it was very important to suppress his emotions. But because the current version of the talisman seal couldn't precisely suppress a certain emotion, Wang Ling basically had to face a one-size-fits-all situation. As soon as Wang Ling started to react to any emotion, he would quickly suppress it. It had been like this every time over the years. Wang Ling hadn't adapted to it in the beginning, and now he was numb. No one knew the bitterness in between so much so that he didn't even feel that bitterness now. Wang Ling often felt like he was trapped in a prison. No matter how he shouted, no one could hear him. Wang Ling. At that moment, the girl's familiar voice woke Wang Ling, who had just suppressed his irritation. Wang Ling, because he was in his body, to be precise, in his sword spirit space. She could clearly sense that Wang Ling was a little different from before, but the expression on his face hadn't changed, so she was a little worried and sincerely hoped that she could be of help. Earlier, I heard Sister Jiayin say that the world of the spiritual space is a sea. The more active a person's thoughts are, the larger the size of the sea. Is that right? Lotus Sun asked. Yes, Wang Ling replied, being a man of few words. If that's the case, then I think I can give it a try. Lotus Sun said. The current mysterious sea was already a genuine 9-core spiritual sword. It was an existence that had fused with 9 heavenly Tao magic cubes. The overall ability of the spirit sword had been greatly improved. Just now, Lotus Sun and Mysterious Sea had briefly communicated telepathically. In theory, with Mysterious Sea's current abilities, he could directly connect to the various oceans in the universe. Since the spiritual space was a sea, he might be able to connect to it silently. However, Mysterious Sea had never tried this before, so he didn't know if it would work. Wang Ling's eyes lit up at this suggestion. He hadn't expected Lotus Sun to directly come up with a feasible solution at such a critical moment. As a veritable 9-core spiritual sword, Mysterious Sea had in fact already grasped the essence of the Sea King. If he used Mysterious Sea's sword spirit space to search for a link to the sea of Wang Ming's spiritual world, it would indeed be a silent method. Wang Ming's spiritual sea was vast and boundless to begin with, and no one would care if seawater mixed in. Moreover, as a spirit sword that could directly manipulate the power of the ocean, Mysterious Sea was an excellent camouflage in this environment, which was also a home field advantage. I think Miss Lotus's plan is feasible. Wang Ling nodded. He felt that it was a good idea, since it could infiltrate without a sound and wouldn't arouse the other party's suspicions. The most important thing was that once Lotus Sun and Mysterious Sea successfully entered that spirit sea, they would be a huge help to Wang Ming. At the most critical moment, they would be able to give the thoughtless ancestor and the thought plague queen the final blow. Reclaim control of the body. If Ling Jinren and Lord Ying think it's feasible, then I'll also help. Combined with the power of my soul index, I believe I can help Miss Lotus and Miss Mysterious Sea quickly locate Mr. Wang Ming's spiritual sea, Death Heavenly Tao said. At that moment, the arrow was already knocked on the bowstring and had to be released. Everyone knew that this was a race against time. After making up their minds, Lotus Sun and Mysterious Sea reacted very quickly. She quickly closed her eyes and immersed herself in her thoughts. Then, In concert with the bewitching dance of Death Heavenly Tao's Soul Index, she began to combine the passive ability of man and sword as one to search the sea of spiritual space. After Mysterious Sea's sword intent drew a blue circle on the floor of Lotus Sun's room, the aura of the boundless ocean was instantly released. Like a compass, Blue Sword Chi guided Lotus Sun and Mysterious Sea to Wang Ming's position. Success. Death Heavenly Tao was very excited. He didn't expect that Mysterious Sea could really connect to the sea in the spiritual space. Next, as long as Lady Rong jumps down and follows the guidance of this Blue Sword Chi, she'll be able to find Mr. Ming's location. And this is the legendary Blue Sea route. Wang Ling and Wang Ying, I'll do my best. At that moment, Lotus Sun took a deep breath and jumped in almost without the slightest hesitation. The moment she jumped into the circle of light, she instantly changed into Mysterious Sea's gorgeous blue dress like a goddess of the sea. The white waves at the hem of the dress swayed in the wind, and for a brief moment, Wang Ling was slightly dazed. But it was only for a split second before his thoughts returned to normal. Elsewhere, Wang Ming and Shoucheng were still on the ghost ship collecting the materials to build the giant mecha armor. The whole process was more troublesome than they had imagined. Dressed in a humanoid mecha armor, they scavenged the surface of the sea. At that moment, an area in the sea of abandonment suddenly boiled. "What's that?" Shoucheng was startled and called out to Wang Ming. A moment after the boiling seawater turned into gorgeous bubbles and rose to the surface, Lotus Sun abruptly poked her head out. "Brother Wang Ming." The familiar voice instantly triggered Wang Ming's thoughts, and he was pleasantly surprised. "So it's you, Rong Rong." Shoucheng also turned pale with fright. "Miss Lotus Sun, it's actually you? Why are you here?" "I'm here to help you," Lotus Sun said. "Great." Wang Ming stared at Lotus Sun and couldn't help praising her. "As expected of my chosen sister-in-law. You can even come in here." At that moment, the seawater boiled even more. Lotus Sun's face flushed red. "Senior Shoucheng, don't listen to his nonsense. I am not." Chapter 1726. Lotus Sun was clearly only at the foundation establishment stage, yet she was able to enter this spiritual space in such a stealthy manner and even become one with the seawater. Just by looking at her, one could tell how strong she was. "Miss Rong and Mr. Ming, I'm really curious. Is Miss Rong really at the foundation establishment stage?" Shoucheng stared at Lotus Sun in disbelief. "Senior Shoucheng, I'm indeed at the foundation establishment stage. I'm at the foundation establishment stage." Lotus Sun smiled. In fact, she had been stuck at the late foundation establishment stage for a long time and hadn't found a good way to break through the bottleneck. It was as if her blood had been frozen. She had been anxious to improve her realm earlier because she was worried that if the gap between her and Mysterious Sea's battle strength was too great, she wouldn't be able to control Mysterious Sea and lose control. But Monk Jean Deng's explanation earlier had completely dispelled her worries. So now, she was relieved that she was still at the foundation establishment stage and didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. Incredible. Shoucheng sighed endlessly, feeling like his worldview had been refreshed. He knew that it was all because of Wang Ling, and Wang Ling was that dead fish-eyed youngster whom Jamiya Ryoko had asked him to look for back then. So what was the relationship between that eldest daughter of the Jamiya family and this eldest daughter of Huagua Water Curtain Group? Because Shoucheng didn't know that the two of them had reconciled, he instantly came to a realization. These two girls were definitely fighting over Wang Ling's affections. No wonder his research funding had been so easy to swindle back then. Girls in love could easily destroy the world and lose their minds. As an experienced person, Shoucheng also had a rich emotional history, so he naturally knew how crazy a person in love, especially a person with a love brain, could be when they did things. He felt that he could try to get closer to Lotus Sun through his love experience. After all, he was already like this because of the heartless patriarch and his senior sister Phoenix, The research lab had been destroyed, and the previous research data might no longer exist. Fortunately, he had a powerful brain that could move clouds, and he could still remember the data. As for the most important meteorite fragment that he had named Eternity, he had stored it in an even more secret place. No one knew where it was hidden. If he were to leave in the future, he would need a huge amount of funds to rebuild the research lab. Therefore, it would be crucial for him to please this young lady. After Lotus Sun joined the team, Wang Ming and Shoucheng's efficiency was clearly doubled. Since Lotus Sun had the ability to manipulate seawater, Wang Ming and Shoucheng didn't need to specifically search for her. No matter what they were looking for, as long as they gave Lotus Sun a word, the waves would directly push the item to their eyes. In the process of finding, dismantling, and assembling parts, Wang Ming realized that Shoucheng seemed to suddenly have a lot more problems. "Miss Rong, how long have you liked that classmate Wang Ling?" Shoucheng asked as he assembled the parts. He looked nonchalant, but this question stunned Lotus Sunday. Lotus Sun instantly blushed. I don't know how to answer you. Senior Shoucheng, Wang Ling, Wang, Sun Yinger, Death Heavenly Tao. It was very obvious that Shoucheng didn't know that Wang Ling and the others were spying on them in the sword spirit space inside Lotus Sun's body. They had been brought in by Lotus Sun, and they couldn't go out, because once they did, there was the possibility of alerting the enemy. Shoucheng also knew that this question was actually a little rude. If he had known that Wang Ling was here, he definitely wouldn't have asked it. But now, he just didn't know that Wang Ling was hiding in Lotus Sun's sword spirit space. It wasn't just him. Even Wang Ming didn't know. As a member of Ling Rong's clique, Wang Ming naturally wouldn't let go of any opportunity to tease Lotus Sun and play matchmaker. Seeing Shoucheng ask this question, he couldn't help echoing him. "To be honest, I've always been curious. What on earth do you like about that guy, Rong? Just because it was his first day at school and he ignored you and took the initiative to greet you? Did that pique your curiosity?" Lotus Sun couldn't help laughing at this question. At first, it was a little out of spite, but later I realized it wasn't. I think that classmate Wang Ling, once he likes someone, he's definitely a loyal person. "Why?" Wang Ming and Shoucheng asked in unison. "Because he's too loyal to crispy noodle snacks. He will be so obsessed with a snack that he would keep it by his side when he eats or sleeps." Lotus Sun said seriously. "That's true." Wang Ming nodded. "In love, the one who takes the initiative is always the one at a disadvantage. But sometimes you really like it." At that moment, Shoucheng couldn't help sighing with emotion. This piqued Lotus Sun's curiosity. "It sounds like Senior Shoucheng is someone with a story?" "Hee, of course I have a story." Shoucheng laughed. "Actually, to tell you the truth, one of my ex-girlfriends is my senior sister. That Madame Feng Chu whom you dealt with before. Feng Chu is your ex-girlfriend?" Wang Ming was stunned. The noble circle is really messy. When fellow disciples carry out many missions together, feelings beyond that of being fellow disciples are bound to develop. Shoucheng laughed. "Previously, my senior sister barged into my laboratory to capture me. Although I know that those who barged in weren't her, they were just replicas created by her. Although I knew that the intruders weren't her, and were just replicas she had created, when her replicas stepped on me. Did you know that I actually recalled that time?" Lotus Sun, Wang Ming. Speaking up to this point, Shoucheng heaved a long sigh. "AI, you youngsters definitely don't know how comfortable it is to be stepped on by a domineering elder sister wearing black stockings. To put it bluntly, it's a special kind of pleasure. Back then, my senior sister was also a charming woman when she wasn't old. Back then, it was she who chased me and used this kind of pleasure to lure me into a trap." Lotus Sun, Wang Ming. "So, Miss Lotus Sun, don't be fooled by classmate Wang Ling's serious demeanor. The more serious a person is, the crazier they will be when they fall in love. Furthermore, it's highly likely that they have certain hobbies." After thinking about it for a while, Shoucheng sked and smiled at Lotus Sunday. "He might not necessarily be like me, who likes to be stepped on and played with by senior sister. Maybe he has other hobbies. Classmate Wang Ling's strength is extraordinary, and it looks like his stamina is also excellent. Once he starts, he might not be able to stop. Lotus Sun, Wang Ling, question mark. Everyone else. Chapter 17:27. It was very obvious that as someone who had been through it, Shochong might have some special hobbies when he was in love, but that didn't mean that other people would have special hobbies when they were in love. Furthermore, he didn't think he would fall in love at all, let alone have any hobbies. He couldn't imagine himself in love at all. If you wrote a romance based on him, even if it was just a kiss with a girl, the description would start with "ah." So kissing tastes like sweet strawberries or blueberries. Then "ah." So the feeling of kissing is the salty taste of pepper. This kind of scenario was a little too stimulating for him, and coupled with his slight social phobia, the more he thought about it, the more scared he became. At that moment, a drop of cold sweat slid down his forehead. He didn't say a word, and just stared at Shochong through the space wall in Lotus Sun's Sword Spirit space. On the other side, Shochong also seemed to sense something, and for some reason, he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine, as if he was being watched by some dangerous creature. He pulled his neck back and immediately realized that he might have said something wrong. After all, Lotus Sun was just a little girl in senior grade 1, and she might not be able to understand the fiery feeling of love developing to the final home run stage. It was indeed a little too early to talk about this. He was very tactful and just smiled awkwardly before continuing to help Wang Ming with his work. You're too impatient. When it comes to assisting, you have to do it step by step. Once we get out, there'll be plenty of opportunities, Wang Ming said. I'm a little impatient. Shochong nodded. Then, can I ask one last question, Mr. Ming? What is it? Wang Ming was curious. Shochong scratched his messy hair. What is the relationship between Miss Lotus Sun and that girl called Ryoko Kuya? What relationship can there be between women? Of course, they're not rivals in love, but best friends. Wang Ming couldn't help laughing. So that's how it is. Realization dawned on Shochong, and he hurriedly thanked him. I understand. Thank you, Mr. Ming. Sure enough, everything was as he had guessed. As expected, there was a Shuraba relationship between the three of them. Wang Ming looked at Shochong's infuriating expression, and for some reason, he had a bad feeling in his heart. However, right now, most of his attention was still focused on building the giant mecha in his hands, and he did not have time to pay too much attention to other things. Shochong's expression was certainly asking for a beating, but he really did not think too much about it. No way. Did anyone really think that Ryoko Kuya and Lotus Sun were rivals in love? Meanwhile, on the other side, when Jingzhe and Loathing, after retreating from the Wang family's small villa, due to Jingzhe's injuries, the two of them quickly returned to Bao by Group's floating ship. SCB L001 was injured. As the first dragon to be successfully nurtured, Jingzhe's injury attracted much attention. Ever since he was born, he had almost never experienced the feeling of being injured. This was also Jingzhe's first experience of being injured. All in all, it gave him a different kind of wonderful feeling. So, this is the feeling of pain. In the core world that was enveloped by golden lightning, he clenched his dragon claws and bathed in lightning. Dragon descendants could speed up the recovery of their injuries by extracting the power of natural elements that match their attributes. But Jingzhe never expected Wang Wan's 2 punches to actually have the effect of inflicting serious injuries, which slowed down his recovery. F*CK. So annoying. Why did you run away just now? If you join hands with me, we might be able to beat him. Holding an ice cream cone, Loathing stayed by Jingzhe's side. That child is very dangerous. This is a critical moment for the Dragon Clan's revival. I can't make the slightest mistake or do something I'm not confident in, Jingzhe explained with a sigh. He also didn't want to run away like a mouse. As a dragon descendant who had inherited the power of a giant dragon, it was a disgrace for the Dragon Clan to flee in defeat like this. The dragon warriors should die in battle, not surrender because of battle. After sorting out his thoughts, Jingzhe rubbed the space between his eyebrows. Don't forget about Hades. Don't forget that we have a labor contract. We're just following the rules here. If we're not confident, according to the rules of the mission, we can choose to leave. All right, humph. Loathing pursed her red lips. But that little guy is really interesting. Even if I have to leave, I should have tried just now. If there's another chance, I'll definitely let you try. Jingze endured the pain and revealed a smile. To this, Loathing mercilessly criticized, "You look so ugly when you smile." Is that so? Jingze looked awkward. He realized that he knew Loathing. After that, it seemed that his personality had unknowingly changed a little. In the past, he had never smiled at a person like this and revealed such an expression. But now Loathing had appeared, no matter how much he didn't want to admit it. In fact, a large part of the reason he had just decided to retreat was because of Loathing. He didn't want Loathing to happen to him. Something had happened to him under his command. This injury had allowed him to comprehend many things. He began to gradually feel some unknown emotions growing in his body. At the same time, because of this defeat, a fighting spirit was aroused. That family surnamed Wang. You must not let this family survive in this world. Otherwise, in the future, when the Dragon Clan was revived, this family would be the future enemy of the Dragon Clan. At this time, under the continuous roar of thousands of thunderbolts in the cleansing swamp's exclusive dragon descendant core world, a bright moonlight seemed to penetrate the eternal universe, breaking through the sky and sprinkling down with a kind of holy brilliance. The light was like starlight, with an immortal dragon might. Jingze and Loathing, almost at the same time, they raised their heads with a bit of surprise in their eyes. Moon Dragon Lord, Jingze and Loathing both sensed the aura of moonlight. That was the aura of Moonlight Dragon, one of the 3 leaders of the Dragon Clan. After the bright moonlight fell, it quickly focused and then slowly gathered on Jingze's body. Almost in an instant, his injured body was healed. The power of the moonlight poured in inch by inch, seeping into every cell in his body. Jingze felt that the spirit power in his body was unprecedentedly abundant. Your aura seems to have become stronger. Loathing looked shocked. That's right, this is the eternal moon starlight of Moon Dragon Lord. It can quickly recover from injuries and give you power beyond your own combat power within a limited time. Jingze shook his hand. He felt that he had been strengthened. At the same time, he couldn't help but feel even more excited. Baijia's eternal moon starlight directly gave him a boost of dragon power 5 times that of before. If it was this kind of power, he was confident that he could completely defeat that baby girl. He could even capture her alive in public. Chapter 1728. With Lotus Sun's help, Wang Ming and Shoucheng's construction progress was undoubtedly much faster. Mysterious E's tyrannical sword Qi could accurately cut out each component based on the blueprint in Wang Ming's mind, even if it was just a screw the size of a melon seed. This scene was similar to Wang Ming's battle of wits and courage with Ghost Headblade. Perhaps the heartless patriarch would never have dreamed that while he was controlling Wang Ming's body, someone would actually be building a giant mecha armor in this spirit space on this banished ghost ship and trying to fight him. In the movie Pacific Rim, this kind of Ultraman fighting monsters action on the sea was something that the movie Pacific Rim called Experts. When all the parts were finished, Wang Ming let out a long sigh of relief, because there was only one last step left. With just one command, all the parts on the ship that had been assembled would instantly assemble into a complete giant mecha armor. I never thought it would actually work. Shoucheng was extremely excited. As a lone wolf among scientists, he had always relied on the power of words to concentrate on researching products. The assistants in the lab were hired to do odd jobs, and he had done almost all the core work himself. But now, the joy and excitement of working together with someone had somehow become even more intense at this moment. There are 2 seats for the main pilot and co-pilot. I'll be the main pilot. Don't get excited, there's still one last step. Wang Ming's expression was solemn. Then, the 2 of them put on the main pilot and co-pilot cores, and with a burst of electromagnetic energy, their bodies actually floated into the air on this ghost ship until they were almost 80 meters in the air before they came to a stop. On the ghost ship, on the surface of the sea, all the parts of the giant mecha armor that had been assembled were summoned by the core at that moment, and they moved in unison. A giant Wangling mecha armor was successfully assembled on the abandoned sea, erupting with powerful fixed power. The giant Wangling mecha armor was even stronger than Wang Ming had imagined. Because of Lotus Sun's help during the assembly process, mysterious sea sword seal had been added to almost every component. This sword seal was similar to a kind of enchantment that could substantially increase the mecha armor's overall combat strength. Sitting in the main pilot's seat, Wang Ming couldn't help laughing when he sensed how powerful this giant Wangling mecha armor was. This giant Wangling mecha armor. This was the sword seal of the 9-core spirit sword. He had never fought such a rich battle in his 8 lifetimes. Too strong. We can really take back our sovereignty. Shoucheng stretched out his trembling hands and held onto the control stick of the front passenger seat. His face was filled with excitement. At that moment, he and Wang Ming were inside the body of this giant Wangling mecha armor. Feeling the powerful spirit power it gave off, they were full of confidence for the upcoming battle. It's all thanks to the strawberries Rong planted on this giant Wangling, Wang Ming said. Indeed, he hadn't expected things to go so smoothly. That's a sword seal, not some kind of strawberry. Lotus Sun quickly retorted. It's all the same. Even if I don't plant them today, I will in the future. Wang Ming smiled slightly. Wang Ling, Lotus Sun. After a short tease, Wang Ming tested the agility of the giant Wang Ling mecha armor and finally decided to challenge the giant aircraft carrier which had been taken away by the heartless patriarch. Brother Shoucheng, it's time for us to perform. Wang Ming's lips curled up. After the countdown of 3, he and Shoucheng pushed the joystick in front of them at the same time. Bees easy. At that moment, sword seals intertwined on the giant mecha armor, and the 9-core sword seals superimposed on every part of the mecha armor, giving it an astonishing aura. At that moment, the grayish-black body of the mecha actually turned a glazed blue color, like a sea dragon soaring into the sky. Then, whoosh, the 80-meter-tall, giant mecha armor didn't look cumbersome at all. It turned into a stream of light as it moved horizontally across the sea. Wherever it passed, the waves were divided into 2 walls of water on the left and right, and it actually looked like the sea was parting. Wang Ming was really too fast. The giant mecha armor, which had turned into a stream of light, swiftly approached the aircraft carrier which the heartless patriarch was on, and the latter couldn't react in time at all. It wasn't until they were about to collide that the heartless patriarch received a warning internally. He reacted very quickly. Although the god brain hadn't fully recovered, Wang Ming's maneuver was within his expectations. However, he was extremely confident and didn't dodge at all as he planned to meet the attack head-on. Although Wang Ming had constructed the giant aircraft carrier which he had extended, the heartless patriarch was now at the helm of the aircraft carrier. Furthermore, after fusing with the god brain, the combat strength of the giant aircraft carrier was already on a completely different level. As an earthling who wasn't a cultivator, Wang Ming's ability to develop his brain to this extent was indeed beyond the heartless patriarch's expectations, but he still didn't care about a brain of this level. Heh, do you want to regain your position? Dream on. Since you've fallen, don't dance again. He snorted, and the aircraft carrier's radar swiftly tracked down Wang Ming's giant mecha armor. However, he was taken aback by its speed. If he hadn't guessed correctly, Wang Ming should have used the waste in the sea of abandonment to assemble this thing in a short time. But those things were all waste. They were all trash. How could the performance of the piece together be so superior? You're courting death. He gripped the rudder tightly with one hand and pressed the red button in front of him with the other. In an instant, tens of thousands of turrets on the giant aircraft carrier fired in unison, and countless missiles were fired in unison at Wang Ming's giant mecha armor. These missiles were like rain as they rapidly shot over from the horizon. Cannon light and smoke blended together, and every single missile was surrounded by runes and possessed a tremendous amount of spiritual energy. Wang Ming was astonished. He never thought that after the heartless patriarch took over his giant aircraft carrier, he would actually be able to raise its overall combat strength to this level. If it hadn't been for Lotus Sun's help this time, even if they built this mecha armor, their chances of winning would have been uncertain. Wang Ming's target was very clear in the face of these incoming missiles. He had come to destroy this giant aircraft carrier, so he was going straight for its back door. This was what he had left behind when he had built the aircraft carrier back then. One hit and the giant aircraft carrier would directly disintegrate. Thus, he had no intention of avoiding these missiles at all, but directly charged forward into this rain of bullets. The heartless patriarch was stupefied by his reckless stance. At the same time, what shocked the heartless patriarch even more was that as Wang Ming piloted the giant mecha armor closer and closer, he finally got a clear look at it. When Wang Ling's trademark dead fish eyes appeared vividly on the giant mecha armor and met the heartless patriarch's gaze, a fear that came from the depths of his heart was instantly outlined. Although this pair of dead fish eyes looked harmless, they were extremely lethal. "Why is it you again?" The heartless patriarch was so frightened that his mind instantly went blank. At that moment, Wang Ling opened his eyes in Lotus Sun's sword spirit space and waved his hand lightly. In the air, the tens of thousands of missile warheads that had been aimed at Wang Ming actually turned at the same time and followed Wang Ming to smash the giant aircraft carrier. Chapter 1729. The moment Wang Ming hit the back door of the aircraft carrier and caused it to disintegrate, thousands of missiles fell in unison, covering almost every inch of the aircraft carrier. Like firecrackers, they flared up and exploded continuously on the sea surface. For a moment, the air billowed as endless seawater was evaporated by the flames. Wang Ling had been lurking in Lotus Sun's sword spirit space the entire time, and only made his move at the very last moment when Wang Ming approached the aircraft carrier. In addition to reversing the direction of the warheads, Wang Ling also single-handedly suppressed all the living beings on and off the aircraft carrier to ensure that the mother of the thought plague wouldn't escape. This move was one of the heavenly Tao, we are all wooden men sub-branches of the Great Suppression spell. Once this spell was activated, it could imprison everyone in a fixed area. They wouldn't be able to move an inch, and they wouldn't even be able to use their magic treasures normally. Even their souls would be imprisoned and unable to move. In Wang Ling's opinion, this was the best move to deal with the mother of the thought plague. Thus, when the giant Wang Ling mecha armor smashed through the giant aircraft carrier's back door and disintegrated it with a single punch, the mother of the thought plague was instantly engulfed in flames as the missiles exploded. Among the great old rulers, the thought plague's main method of mental invasion was in fact the weakest in terms of physical strength. Once they were targeted, in a situation where they couldn't transfer their souls and their bodies were exposed, even a soul formation cultivator would be able to easily crush them to death. After the giant aircraft carrier was destroyed, Wang Ming could clearly sense that this mental space had already returned to his control. He set up the giant Wang Ling mecha armor he was operating as a new base, and, at the same time, he directly had it lie flat on the surface of the sea and transform into a giant ship. On the other side, the heartless patriarch was also captured. He had been taken away by Lotus Sun the moment the aircraft carrier had disintegrated, and was now bound by mysterious C's sword intent. This was a very skillful tortoiseshell binding, and his posture was graceful and a little flirtatious. "You didn't expect me to actually come back, did you?" Wang Ming crouched down and couldn't help laughing. "Oomph." The heartless patriarch turned his face away. It was clear that he didn't accept this outcome. "If it wasn't for the fact that my god brain hasn't fully recovered, how could you two trifling juniors be my match? No matter how unwilling you are to admit it, your defeat is a fact. Although I didn't know what agreement you had with that Baizha, I do know a lot now that I've regained my sovereignty," Wang Ming said with a thoughtful expression on his face. After regaining control of the spirit space, Wang Ming had synchronized all the memories of the heartless patriarch's contact with Baizha. At present, It was certain that the other party was indeed formulating a plan to revive the dragon race. By excavating a large number of dragon skeletons in the dragon graveyard and piecing them together to extract their genes, they would then revive them with a supreme spell. Wang Ming captured the memories and shared them with Wang Ling, Lotus Sun, and the others. That guy actually became one of the 3 leaders of the dragon clan, the Moonlight Dragon. Haha, this guy really won't go away. This time, Wang Ming really couldn't help laughing. Baizha, a man who had been repeatedly whipped by his younger brother Wang Ling, had actually imagined himself to be one of the 3 leaders of the dragon clan, Moonlight Dragon. In terms of battle prowess alone, this was probably Baizha's strongest battle prowess to date. Who knew how many slaps he could take from Wang Ling? He didn't know much about the dragon race, and only knew from rumors that this race was very strong. At its peak, it had even surpassed the rulers of the old days. Moonlight Dragon was one of the 3 leaders of the dragon clan, and Wang Ming had also learned from the Heartless Patriarch's memories a special ability called Eternal Moon Starlight. In fact, this was Moonlight Dragon's dragon breath. It lingered around Moonlight Dragon's body and had a very strong healing effect. And the most important thing was that Eternal Moon Starlight could ignore serious injuries. Previously, Wang Ling's slaps had a serious injury effect, which hindered the healing ability of those who had been passively beaten. Now, with the existence of Eternal Moon Starlight, who knew they might really be able to fight Wang Ling for 10 rounds? But obviously, that wasn't the crux of the problem now. Instead, what on earth was the purpose of reviving so many dragon descendants? Ordinary dragon descendants couldn't possibly be Wang Ling's match. Even the 3 leaders of the dragon clan would have to think twice before dealing with Wang Ling. As Wang Ling's old rival, Baizha should be well aware of this point. In the past, Baizha's blind confidence had already become a habit. Although he had become Moonlight Dragon this time, and was already the strongest in history, he wouldn't repeat the same mistake of continuing to be blindly confident and then failing in public. Wait, I think I've discovered something. But for the time being, I don't know what it means, Wang Ming suddenly said at that moment. Through the Heartless Patriarch's memories, he remembered a strange symbol that the Heartless Patriarch had seen in the dragon graveyard when he had borrowed Wang Ming's body. It was a strange symbol made up of holes, which looked like it had been smashed by something. Wang Ming recorded this strange symbol from memory and drew it on the ground. Then he was dumbfounded. Does anyone know what this is? Wang Ming asked as he stared at the diamond-shaped symbol. From its shape, it looked a little like a diamond. Death Heavenly Tao pondered for a moment, and his expression was instantly horrified. This, Senior Death Heavenly Tao, what did you think of? Lotus Sun asked. I keep feeling that it's a little like the mark of cosmic punishment. Death Heavenly Tao rubbed his chin and said, back then, there was actually a saying about the destruction of the ancient dragon clan overnight. It was said that because the dragon clan was too powerful, the universe was forced to activate a system of checks and balances, which erased the existence of the dragon clan. This kind of punishment, which resulted from the universe's ability to check and balance, was called cosmic punishment. So I thought, could this be the legendary mark of cosmic punishment? Mark of cosmic punishment. Wang Ying laughed. If that's the case, Baizha's resurrecting the dragon descendants isn't just to revive the dragon clan. Instead, he intends to restart cosmic punishment, draw this calamity onto Earth, and use the power of cosmic punishment to destroy Commander Ling? That's very possible. Death Heavenly Tao couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat. Now that Miss Lotus Sun's spirit sword has fused with 9 old Heavenly Tao magic cubes, and she's been living on Earth all this time, it's very likely that the universe will mistakenly think that Earth is the center of the universe. In addition, Ling Junren and Lord Ying are on Earth. Once the ancient dragon clan is resurrected on Earth in large numbers, there's a real possibility that the cosmic punishment that was triggered in ancient times will reappear. Hearing this, the corners of Wang Ling's mouth twitched. Death Heavenly Tao was puzzled. Why doesn't Ling Junren look nervous at all? At that moment, Wang Ling shook her head. Because even if Baizhi really does intend to activate the universe's system of checks and balances, it's useless. Death Heavenly Tao, why? Wang Ying crossed her arms and sighed. Because right now, Commander Ling has the authority to activate cosmic punishment. Death Heavenly Tao? Question mark. Everything Baizhi is doing now is the same as submitting a letter of complaint to the universe in an attempt to use the universe's system of checks and balances to suppress Commander Ling. Saying this, Wang Ying couldn't help laughing. But have you ever seen someone accept a complaint about themselves? Everyone. Chapter 1730. It wasn't that Wang Ling hadn't wondered what Baizhi's ultimate goal was after taking such a big detour. He had many answers in his mind, but the most likely one was that Baizhi was trying to use the universe's checks and balances to kill him. Did someone really think it would be useful to complain to the universe about him? Wang Ling had thought that no one would be that stupid, but this time he had learned something new. After Wang Ming regained control of his body and learned and analyzed the heartless patriarch's memories, these deductions could now be said to be true. Wang Ling suddenly remembered when he had watched a TV series back then. An official in an ancient uniform sitting in the court had slammed the gavel and shouted, "Who dares to sue this official?" It was said that material came from life, but Wang Ling had never thought that one day it would happen to him. Now that the main body of the thought pestilence had been destroyed and the source of the main body had been cut off, no new thought pestilence would be produced. Furthermore, the thought pestilence that had already invaded the human body would gradually wither as they could no longer sense the main body. Wang Ling had won a round in this game of chess, but it clearly wasn't time to relax yet. "Wang Ling, what should we do now?" Lotus Sun asked. She saw the young man's thoughtful expression and eagerly hoped that she could help. She wanted to show off in this way to close the distance between her and Wang Ling. There were times when she felt that she was already very close to Wang Ling, and when she thought that she was about to succeed, the distance between them suddenly seemed very far away. Hence, she now felt that what Sun Yinger had said to her earlier wasn't completely unreasonable. She should have been more proactive. Wang Ling still didn't speak. He crossed his arms and sat cross-legged on the spot, his thoughts conveyed by Wang Ying. The situation is very clear now. Baizhi has already become a moonlight dragon. If he wants to activate the universe's checks and balances, he will have to revive the other two Dragon Clan leaders, Wang Ying said. The other two Dragon Clan leaders? Lotus Sun blinked. Apart from the Moonlight Dragon, the other two are the Dark Devouring Dragon and the Azure Origin Dragon. The Dark Devouring Dragon wields the power of darkness, while the Azure Origin Dragon, as the name implies, it's actually a water dragon, Wang Ying said. Actually, at this point, the rest of the people here immediately understood. Everyone knew that after condensing the 9 heavenly Tao magic cubes, Mysterious E's ability was to control seawater. It was similar to the Azure Origin Dragon's ability. However, Mysterious E's abilities were still limited. Mysterious E could only control seawater. The Azure Origin Dragon's configuration was even more advanced than Mysterious E's. It could control all kinds of water, not just seawater. The Azure Origin Dragon can control water, but its range is limited. With itself as the center, it can only cover 100,000 galaxies around it. But now Mysterious E could cover 1 billion of them. In terms of range, Mysterious E had a wider range. But in terms of maneuverability, the Azure Origin Dragon is stronger, Wang Ying explained. Therefore, to sum up, there were pros and cons between the two. So Wang Ling's idea now was very simple. He felt that if he could snatch the Azure Origin Dragon's dragon bone and imbue the Azure Origin Dragon's dragon power into Mysterious E, then Mysterious E wouldn't just be the Sea King anymore. He would be the true queen of all waters. In Wang Ling's view, this was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. This was because the stronger Mysterious E was, the stronger Lotus Sun's ability to handle crises would be. If something happened, she would be able to take care of it on her own, and he wouldn't have to worry at all. Wang Ling felt that as long as he gave her enough ability to protect herself, she wouldn't bother him in the future. However, he had never expected that his plan would bring about the opposite effect. Invisible flirting is the deadliest. At that moment, Wang Ying sighed helplessly in his heart. As the shadow of a genuine old stainless steel log, he felt that this old stainless steel log had a long way to go in terms of love. How long would it take for her to realize this? Next year? Or the year after? In a floating boat at Bao Bai Group, when Wang Ming opened his eyes again, he suddenly heard someone calling him. Lord Wuxin. The person calling him was an employee of Bao Bai Group. He was wearing thick protective clothing as he asked cautiously. Wang Ming swept him a glance. At that moment, he was standing next to a huge pit in the dragon's tomb. This was one of the excavation sites for the dragon bone. Because they had regained control of their bodies, there would be a period of mental emptiness when they took over their bodies. On the surface, they would look like they were in a daze and wouldn't respond no matter who called them. Fortunately, this emptiness wasn't too long. It was only a dozen or so seconds. Wang Ming laughed inwardly. Now, the people in the dragon's tomb had no idea that he had already regained control of his body. How's the excavation going? He didn't give the game away, and continued to use the tone of the Wuxin ancestor to communicate with these employees of Bao Bai Group. We hit the jackpot. Lord Wuxin, the Bao Bai Group employee, said excitedly. We've already detected a huge amount of energy hidden underground in L1289. It's very likely that there are parts of the U3 families buried inside. The U3 families. This was Bao Bai Group's abbreviation for the three leaders of the Dragon Clan, namely the Moonlight Dragon, the Dark Devouring Dragon, and the Azure Origin Dragon. At present, apart from the Moonlight Dragon's bones, most of the Dark Devouring Dragon and the Azure Origin Dragon's bones had yet to be collected, and there were still a lot of missing parts. So, whenever there was a new discovery about the U3 families, the Bao Bai Group employees in charge of the exploration were extremely excited, because if they found something, they would be rewarded with an extra bonus. And this bonus was a huge bonus that was enough for every employee to enjoy for the rest of their lives. Under such an incentive system, all the employees of Bao Bai Group worked hard as if they were on steroids. If they took off their protective suits, the dark circles under their eyes would be clearly visible. Thus, the employees of Bao Bai Group jokingly called themselves pandas. Good job. Wang Ming praised him, then looked at the employee. Where are the parts of the U3 families that were collected? They're already under strict protection in the cemetery's encryption laboratory. No one is allowed to enter, the employee replied. Wang Ming looked at the employee's serial number and said, Serial number 10021. Yes, I'm here. The person immediately saluted and replied. Actually, I suddenly thought of something just now. I think we might be able to use other methods to find the remaining dragon bones of the U3 families. For example, the mutual induction of the dragon bones? Wang Ming said, I know. You've done induction experiments before, but the one I'm proposing now is completely new. But to ensure the feasibility of the experiment, I need to take a look at the place where the dragon bones are stored. But you'll have to apply for it and go through the process, replied 10021. If it's through the application process, then everyone in the company will know about my method. But now, you're the only one who knows. Wang Ming smiled. 10021. When the time comes, if you get my method, you'll be able to smoothly excavate all the dragon bones of the Imperial 3 families. You should be able to imagine how much of a bonus you and the people in your survey team will get, right? That will be an inexhaustible source of wealth. Hearing this, number 10021 couldn't help but grit his teeth. I don't know the location of the encryption laboratory myself, but I know someone he might know. He was my former boss, and he was also the one who planned the capture of that woman. What woman? That female Special Forces soldier with the surname Zhai, said number 10021. I remember now. Very good. That woman was captured really beautifully. Wang Ming feigned a look of sudden realization as he smiled, but in fact there was a dagger hidden in his smile. So, Lord Wuxin, are you really just going to take a look? That's right. I just need to scan it with my brainwaves. You should know how strong my brainwaves are. Wang Ming nodded and continued to smile innocently. So, you just need to get that former boss to take me there. Don't worry, I'm just going to take a look and not go in. Once I go in, I'll directly tear down your base. Chapter 1731. The encryption laboratories in the Dragon Graveyard were located in various parts of the graveyard, some in the air, some underground, and would change positions at any time according to the encryption mechanism. The encryption laboratories were divided into 4 levels: Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow. Among them, the Heaven level was the highest level encryption laboratory, and there was only one of them in the entire Dragon Graveyard. All the bones of the 3 imperial families that had been found were stored in this only Heaven-level laboratory. This was the highest-level laboratory. Even though the Wuxin Patriarch and Baizha had joined forces, Baizha was still wary of him and didn't give him full access. The 8-legged mechanical crab was a regular means of transportation in the Dragon Graveyard. Wang Ming and number 10021 galloped like the wind through this reddish-brown graveyard. The 8-legged crab looked cumbersome, but it was extremely fast and flexible. The 2 of them soon found the boss, codenamed Wasp, who had brought number 10021 abroad. Wang Ming glanced at Wasp's number plate, which read 291. A 3-digit number plate was enough to prove that the other party was already a veteran employee of the Bao Bai group. In the Bao Bai group, these Pandaren could judge each other's seniority based on their number plates. The earlier they came, the smaller the number and the higher their rank and right to speak. Therefore, the length of the number was sometimes a symbol of status. A 3-digit number plate was like a 5-digit QQ number, which was already a legendary existence in the Bao Bai group. It was precisely because of this that Wasp was very arrogant. Even though the Wuxin Patriarch was already a first-class scientist in the Bao Bai group, and ordinary Pandaren had to greet him as Sir, as a 3-digit employee, the expression on Wasp's face didn't change much when he saw Wang Ming appear. I know who you are. You're a new scientist, and you entered the first echelon as soon as you came in. Wasp smiled and said, but I don't care who you are. In the Dragon Graveyard, there are a total of 362 zones, and I'm now a zone commander. As long as you're not the commander-in-chief in charge of the excavation and exploration at the site, you and I are equals. I understand. Wang Ming smiled. No, you don't understand. I heard about your request from number 10021 before you officially start working with us. In order to ensure that nothing unpleasant happens, I still want to clarify this relationship with you. Wasp said, first of all, not every division commander knows the location of the Heaven-level laboratory. If you think someone else is more reliable and can bring you more convenience, please leave this division as soon as possible and go to their division. The flow of time in the Dragon's Graveyard is very slow. According to the time here, 10 minutes in the outside world might only be a month in here. Based on the time here, this is the 5th year since Bao Bai was established. I've given the rest of Bao Bai's employees 3 years, and I've capped their performance in the 2nd year. In these 3 years, have any of them surpassed me? Now that I've become this division commander, I'm also one of the number 1 dark horses competing for the position of commander-in-chief among all division commanders. Accepting your proposal to cooperate is completely giving you face. After all, there aren't many scientists in the first echelon. So, we have an equal relationship, not a superior and subordinate relationship. Do you understand now? I really understand this time. Wang Ming laughed bitterly in his heart as he feigned civility. At this point, Wasp nodded in satisfaction. He looked at Wang Ming and confirmed. Number 10021 said that you only need to probe the Heaven-level encryption laboratory with brainwaves, right? How long will it take? Is 1 second enough? 1 second? This is the highest level of encryption laboratory, and its location can change at any time. You can't stay at a coordinate for more than 5 seconds at most. If you're lucky enough, you can have 5 seconds. But if you're unlucky, you only have 1 second. Wasp said, also, I can only help you once. After all, Probing the top secret is also risky for me. Very well. 1 second is enough, Wang Ming said. Whether it was 1 second or 100,000th of a second, as long as this heaven-level laboratory appeared, it definitely wouldn't run away from him. Wang Ming couldn't help but laugh in his heart. Right now, his body was inhabited by the strongest people on Earth. How did you calculate the location of the heaven-level laboratory? Wang Ming asked. I didn't calculate it, but sensed it. Wasp laughed. There are 362 subdivisions in the Dragon Cemetery, and the heaven-level laboratory will always pass by the area under my jurisdiction several times. I've already planted a sensing device in the subdivision under my feet. For some reason, Wang Ming felt that Wasp seemed very familiar with this operation, as if he wasn't the first person to inquire about the heaven-level laboratory's location. He felt that Wasp had already turned this into a business. At that moment, Wasp held a data panel in his hand and stared fixedly at the data on it. They sat on a mechanical crab and kept moving until they reached a certain point. Wasp finally commanded the mechanical crab to stop. It's coming. Get ready. The heaven-level laboratory will soon pass by us, and the coordinates are no more than 2 kilometers away from us, he said. This wasn't precise location information, but it was enough for Wang Ming. It was just a few kilometers, and his brainwaves could still cover it. He concentrated his mental strength and then spread out his brainwaves in one go, covering the ground in all directions like an inescapable net. In the end, Wang Ming suddenly felt that he had caught a behemoth in midair. Buzz! All of a sudden, the huge thing hidden in the air appeared. Under the influence of Wang Ming's brainwaves, the invisible barrier on the outside was actually affected, and its true appearance was directly revealed in full view of everyone. It was a giant thing that looked like a steel chrysalis. No one had thought that such a monstrous thing would actually be a building, and a legendary heaven-level laboratory at that. Wasp's mouth gradually opened wide. He couldn't believe that Wang Ming's brainwaves were so terrifying that they could directly disable the heaven-level laboratory's invisible mechanism. Not only that, the heaven-level laboratory was directly frozen in place and wouldn't budge an inch. Are you crazy? How could you make such a big deal out of this? Wasp screamed in shock. Big? Wang Ming crossed his arms and curled his lips as he stared at Wasp with a cold look in his eyes. When you brought my girlfriend here, you didn't seem to consider whether this matter would become a big deal or not, did you? Wasp instantly sensed that something was wrong. You are at that moment, Wasp felt an invisible force strangling his throat, and his whole body actually floated up under a powerful wave. He was being controlled, and under the tremendous mental pressure, he wet his pants on the spot. Then, Wang Ming stepped forward and touched Wasp's head. In his right hand, he used the temporary enchantment spell that he had prepared beforehand to strengthen Wasp's head. Then he used his brain waves to control Wasp so that his head faced the steel chrysalis in front of him. There was a whoosh. Chapter 1732. When this heaven-level laboratory, which looked like a steel silkworm chrysalis, appeared in the air, the staff in charge of the laboratory were already aware that the laboratory had been exposed, but they didn't completely panic. After all, this wasn't the first time that the invisibility mechanism had failed. It was like when some celebrity on Weibo suddenly released some gossip, which attracted a huge wave of onlookers and directly crashed the app. It was the same for the invisibility mechanism to fail. What they needed was for the internal coder responsible for protecting the laboratory to hurry up and fix the problem. As the mother nest where the dragon bones of the Yusanjiao were stored, the number of coder apes in the heaven-level laboratory was the highest. Generally speaking, it only took a few seconds for the invisibility mechanism to fail. But this time, these bald coder apes were astonished to find that the mother nest was already completely out of their control. Hundreds of bald coder apes frantically typed on their keyboards to perfect and repair the heaven-level laboratory's defense mechanism, but there was no reaction at all after they typed in the array code. Why did the bug in the invisibility mechanism take so long to fail this time? It was over. There was no year-end bonus at all. Each and every one of them was on the verge of collapse. Oh no, it's not a bug. We've been invaded by a powerful brainwave. The invisibility array and teleportation array used to encrypt our defense have failed. Very quickly, one of the coder apes slapped his bald head and cried out in alarm as if he had realized something. When the laboratory's internal radar scanned the source of the abnormal brainwave, the camera immediately focused on Wang Ming. Lord Wuxin. Earlier, Baobai Group had already notified them that the control of this young man, called Wang Ming's body, had fallen completely into the hands of a senior called Ancestor Wuxin. So when Wang Ming appeared and attacked the heaven-level laboratory with brainwaves, a lot of people couldn't react for a moment and felt like it was unreal. What's going on? Why is Lord Wuxin attacking us? We're on the same side. Idiot. How is this Lord Wuxin? Lord Wuxin is definitely dead. This young man has regained control of his body. F***K. Isn't he just an ordinary person? Lord Wuxin is an immortal. For a moment, a lot of people discussed this. They didn't understand what was going on after this backlash. At that moment, Wang Ming stood on the reddish-brown ground of the cemetery. The horn for a counterattack had officially sounded. After regaining control of his body, he felt that his mental power and brain waves were much stronger than before. Is it because of the god brain? Now, the heartless patriarch had been countered by him, but the incomplete divine brain that had invaded his spiritual space was still in his body. In other words, Wang Ming, who had now successfully regained control of his body, had also become the new owner of this incomplete god brain. Moreover, with time, as the god brain gradually recovered, his brain would be even more powerful than before. Thus, when Wang Ming used Wasp's strengthened skull to smash open a hole in the heaven-level laboratory, countless old Japanese creatures appeared in the heaven-level laboratory and started to guard it. He had never seen these creatures of the old days before. They were more like synthetic creatures. They had evil eyeballs full of tentacles, but there were dragon descendants and dragon tails on their backs. They were actually a combination of the dragon race and the creatures of the old days. Flapping their dragon wings, they poured out of the hole in the wall and surrounded the lab as they attacked Wang Ming in a torrent. At that moment, Wang Ming stood on the spot with his arms crossed and rubbed his chin. His brain waves were even stronger now, so of course he wasn't afraid. On the other hand, it was mainly because of the nesting doll linkage that had formed in his body. Because Lotus Sun and Mysterious E were still in his spiritual space, and in Lotus Sun's sword spirit space were Wang Ying, Death Heavenly Dao, and his strongest younger brother Wang Ling. With so many big shots in his body like nesting dolls, of course he had nothing to be afraid of. Rong, we have to think of a way to get in. Also, it's best not to destroy this nest first. I have a feeling that apart from the dragon bones, there might be other information that I'm interested in. Wang Ming said, maybe this information will help me research a new Dao talisman. A new Dao talisman? Wang Ling's interest in stealing the dragon bones had originally been SOSO. He had wanted to directly seize the dragon bones and then directly raze the entire dragon cemetery to the ground. But now that Wang Ming said that there was information on developing a new Dao talisman in the heaven-level laboratory, the situation had clearly reversed. When Wang Ling heard this, he wasn't sleepy at all. After he said this, a spring instantly appeared at Wang Ming's feet, and Lotus Sun directly appeared. Why did you come out? I didn't want to come out. It was classmate Wang Ling. Lotus Sun said, I see, it was my little brother who wanted to come out of your body. Lotus Sun felt that there was something wrong with this, but now clearly wasn't the time to argue. I'll escort Brother Ming in. Classmate Wang Ling said, just now that they can take care of things here. Got it. Wang Ming nodded. With Wang Ling keeping watch at the back, he was naturally very relieved. He didn't need to think too much about it, and just needed to charge forward. Whoosh! A cloud of blue mist rose from Wang Ming's feet and finally turned into a dark blue cloud, which then turned into a dark blue motorcycle in front of Lotus Sun and Wang Ming. Before Wang Ming could react, Lotus Sun was already in the driver's seat and wearing a helmet. This was a dark blue motorcycle that had been transformed from Mysterious Sea's spirit power. Wang Ming never thought that a girl could actually have such a cool and unrestrained side. "Brother Ming, get on." At that moment, Lotus Sun's clothes had also smoothly transformed into motorcycle shapewear, which accentuated her good figure to the fullest. Wang Ming's Adam's apple bobbed up and down. He was extremely self-aware as he put on the helmet that Mysterious Sea had created and sat in the back seat. He didn't wrap his arms around Lotus Sun's waist, but crossed his arms in a very aloof manner. He was a man who already had a partner. Wang Ming felt that he should be more self-disciplined. "Brother Ming, sit tight. We're going to set off now." Lotus Sun didn't think too much about it. She stepped on the bike with her slender legs and directly turned the accelerator to the max. There was a loud bang. When the engine roared like a long dragon, a shocking dragon-shaped jet of water instantly shot out of the rear exhaust port of the motorcycle. It was aimed directly at the huge hole that had been smashed open in the heaven-level laboratory, going straight for the root of the problem. At the same time, Wang Ling stood solemnly at the back. He watched as Lotus Sun rode away on her handsome motorcycle. In the blink of an eye, she turned into a small black dot and pulled away from him. Then, he summoned Jinka at the same time. "Sword Master." Jinka bowed. Wang Ling didn't say much. He just looked at the synthetic creatures that filled the sky and said indifferently, "Clear the area. Leave no one alive." Chapter 1733. It was finally Jinka's turn. When he appeared in front of Wang Ling, he felt as if he had been sealed away for a long time. He hadn't been idle these days. Because of Bai Qiao, he had a lot of calluses on his hands. This was from playing games with Bai Qiao. On one hand, he couldn't refuse Bai Qiao's invitation, and, on the other hand, he wanted to improve his relationship with Bai Qiao through games. There were countless body integration stage beings up ahead, and they filled the entire sky. When Lotus Sun rode the motorcycle that Mysterious Sea had transformed into and charged into the mother nest, Jinka also exerted his strength to clear the way for Lotus Sun and Wang Ming. Buzz! A wisp of brown sword chi appeared. At first, it was only the size of a leaf as it floated in Jinka's palm. When he struck out with his palm, it instantly soared into the sky and shot out as a beam of light. This burst of sword chi was extremely powerful, and in the instant that the surrounding synthetic living beings came into contact with the sword chi, they didn't even have a chance to react before they were reduced to nothingness. Indeed, the hybrid life forms with dual dragon and old sun bloodlines couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as normal spirit beasts on Earth. These hybrid life forms were very lethal. A month or two ago, Jinka didn't think his battle strength would have been enough to contend with them. But now, everything was different. Ever since Bai Qiao's return and Wang Ling's guidance and cultivation, his battle strength had grown significantly. Moreover, he would sometimes be able to comprehend some new abilities while teaching Lung Ming, and it was a perfect example of the saying, teaching and learning are mutually beneficial. After successfully escorting Lotus Sun and Wang Ming inside with Sword Chi, Jinka immediately flicked his finger and used Sword Chi to completely seal off the hole in the lab. In the blink of an eye, all of the synthetic beings in the sky began to howl in rage. These dragon's beer monsters had a certain level of intelligence. They knew that if they wanted to further destroy the laboratory, they had to defeat the sword spirit in front of them. Very soon, the mental pressure of these dragon whisker monsters was concentrated on one point, and they pressed down on Jinka's shoulder. Jinka didn't move. His small body withstood the pressure of thousands of synthetic life forms, and his posture was still as relaxed as ever. It was just that his body had sunk slightly into the reddish-brown ground. Jia, in the sky, the synthetic life forms let out strange laughter. Then, their tentacles actually began to extend, and thick green mucus oozed out of their suckers before they connected with each other. They can actually be combined? Are they playing a synthetic watermelon? Death Heavenly Dao was dumbstruck at this scene. Sure enough, the creatures of the old Japanese system gave people this extremely mysterious feeling. He watched as the tentacles intertwined with each other and merged into one amidst the slithering sound of the green mucus. He could not help but feel a sense of disgust in his heart. Then, the scattered living beings gathered swiftly and coalesced into a massive dragon-shaped creature. The giant dragon-whiskered monster was hundreds of meters tall. It waved the dragon wings on its back that were made of tentacles, and its claws and tail were all made of huge tentacles. With a casual exhale, he spat out a mouthful of green phlegm, which was highly corrosive. Like a waterfall, it enveloped Wang Ling and the others from all directions, leaving them no room to dodge at all. His eyes, as he soared. Ling of he as, you want to cut it with sword chi? He. The dragon's whisker monster's voice rang out directly in Jinka's mind through some kind of mysterious mental power. It seemed to have long since anticipated that Jinka would use sword chi to defend himself, and the moment Jinka made his move, it let out a mocking laugh as if its plan had succeeded. As the product of a combination of an old sun creature and a dragon, its ability was naturally full of mystery and tyranny, and couldn't be compared to ordinary cultivation spells on Earth. This green pus contained a special substance that could melt when it encountered sword chi. Not only would it not be cut or evaporated by the sword chi, it would instantly form hundreds of millions of dense pus beads that fell like acid rain. The more sword chi was used to cut it, the denser the pus beads became. There was no way to avoid it. The dragon thought that its plan had succeeded, and it was laughing sinisterly when the sword spirit in front of it seemed to change a little. His tiny body had grown taller, and even his hair had grown longer. He had transformed from a childlike little sword spirit into a childish, yet cold young man who did not look like someone to be trifled with. You want to dance in front of this king with this bit of strength? Jingbai opened his eyes and sneered as he stared at the several hundred meters tall dragon, whiskered monster in the air. He flicked his sleeve again, and there was a tinge of green in the brown sword chi. As the master of the Sword King realm, he could freely mobilize the sword chi of any spiritual sword in the Sword King realm for his own use. This green sword chi was formed from the combination of foresight and cold nether sword chi. It had a powerful, purifying power. When the sword chi collided with the green pus, the pus split into more pus beads. But the corrosive substance inside was also purified and filtered into clean rainwater on the spot. You dare to embarrass yourself in front of this king with such insignificant skills? Jingbai chuckled. Do you think you're the only one who can synthesize? Hearing this, Wang Ling, Wang Ying, and Death Heavenly Tao fell silent. They had completely seen through it but didn't point it out. The truth was that, given Jinka's current strength, dealing with this giant dragon whisker monster was no problem at all. But Wang Ling realized that Jinka had a problem now. It was that he would always think of ways to find an excuse to merge with him, including several times before. Jinka could clearly beat it in his current form, but he had to pretend that he couldn't and then choose to merge with Bai Qiao. It could only be said that he had changed. At least in Wang Ling's eyes, he had changed. Ever since he'd found Bai Qiao, it was as if he felt uncomfortable all over if he didn't merge with her for a day. Wang Ling didn't know if it was his imagination. He somehow felt that Jinka was flaunting their affection in disguise. Furthermore, it seemed to be secretly reminding him that even the sword spirit already had a partner. So why didn't he have one? Good heavens! So this was what he had been waiting for at that moment. The corners of Wang Ling's mouth twitched, but he very quickly regained his composure. It was impossible for him to fall in love. He would never fall in love in this life. And even if he did fall in love one day, it was impossible for him to fall in love with Lotus Sunday rabbits didn't eat the grass near their burrows. On the other side, Lotus Sun, who had already successfully hacked into the lab, suddenly sneezed violently. Are you all right? Did you catch a cold? But you shouldn't have caught a cold now, Wang Ming asked. I'm fine, Brother Ming. Maybe someone is scolding me? Heh, not necessarily. Maybe it's missing you. Chapter 1734. Contrary to Wang Ming's expectations, Lotus Sun's expression seemed particularly calm. Not only did her expression not turn steamy, there seemed to be a hidden smile on her face. Was it because she had become numb after being teased so many times? At that moment, Wang Ming secretly thought that he had miscalculated. He felt that he had indeed used too much force and hadn't been able to control the rhythm of teasing someone. I noticed that you become calm, Rong. Wang Ming couldn't help laughing as he looked Lotus Sun up and down. Brother Ming, you've already teased me so many times, I can get used to it. Lotus Sun sighed helplessly. Then it looks like I'll have to arrange an even bigger surprise to scare you. Wang Ming chuckled, his face very much like Ajua's he smile. By the way, my lab has developed a lotus root baby rearing product. Do you want to try it? Lotus root baby? It's an experimental product developed for pregnant mothers and fathers who are still preparing for pregnancy and planning to have a child. It can give them a taste of what it's like to take care of a baby in advance. Wang Ming said, it uses the immortal lotus to create a body and then uses big data analysis to analyze the personalities of both the man and the woman. In the end, a virtual personality is injected into the bodies of the immortal lotus babies. So, do you want to make one too? Hearing this, Lotus Sun sucked in a cold breath. I don't want to. She bluntly refused. She couldn't imagine what an immortal lotus baby would be like. Furthermore, this immortal lotus baby's virtual personality could only be created by two people. Who did she create it with? With Wang Ling? At this thought, Lotus Sun suddenly felt that she had fallen into a trap again. She glared at Wang Ming, and for the first time, deliberately put on a very angry look. Brother Ming, don't joke around, I'll really get angry. I'm on a mission right now. Fine, I was a little too much, I apologize. Wang Ming raised his hands in a gesture of surrender, but he had a cheeky smile on his face and didn't look like he was apologizing at all. Lotus Sun sighed and decided not to argue with Wang Ming anymore. At that moment, the two of them went deep into the lab and found that many of the researchers were frozen in their postures and expressions, as if they were wax figures. What's wrong with them? Lotus Sun walked up to a researcher in a white coat and gently poked his face. I covered the entire lab with brainwaves and froze their movements, Wang Ming said. Is it like a kind of mental suppression? I don't know how to explain it. Brother Ming can still do that? Yeah, it definitely wouldn't have worked before. But now that I've regained my body, I feel like I can do many things that I couldn't do before. Because of the God brain? Maybe. Wang Ming said, haha. After all, this was something that belonged to the immemorial one. I felt like I had picked up a treasure for nothing. Moreover, this thing can help me enlighten my thinking. Maybe it can help me successfully research new talismans. Indeed, Wang Ming now felt different from before. With the God brain's blessing, it was as if his brain had been implanted with a motherboard, which allowed him to directly carry out higher density calculations in his mind. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call him a walking calculator in human form. Then, Brother Ming, where are we going now? Lotus Sun asked. She knew that if Wang Ming had already froze all the researchers in the lab with his brainwaves, then he definitely had a clear map of the entire heaven-level lab. Go this way. Wang Ming nodded, then gave Lotus Sun directions. He directly shared the map in Lotus Sun's mind with his brainwaves and marked their current coordinates. Lotus Sun rode the motorcycle along the map that Wang Ming had synchronized in his mind as she sped through the laboratory and very quickly arrived at a secret location. This was a place sealed by 3 layers of intelligent gates and an array, and was an important place where the dragon bones were stored. Mysterious Sea. Seeing this, Lotus Sun called out softly. Then, Wang Ming saw a sword chi missile formed from Mysterious Sea shoot out from the back of the motorcycle and directly punch a huge hole through the 3 layers of gates. It could actually do this? Wang Ming was blank for a moment. He felt that Lotus Sun was getting better and better at controlling Mysterious Sea. After entering the lab, Wang Ming and Lotus Sun immediately saw a huge oval crystal container in the shape of an eggshell. The egg-shaped container was connected to over 100 tubes, which were connected to the crystal display walls inside the lab. At that moment, Lotus Sun's pupils contracted slightly as she was stunned by the scene in front of her. Because behind these display walls, there were dragon bones from different parts. The bones of the dark devouring dragon, the azure origin dragon, and some of the moonlight dragon, as well as the bones of the other dragon clans. It seems that they're all here. Wang Ming's gaze focused, and his expression swiftly turned serious. He and Lotus Sun quickly got off the motorcycle and went over to the egg-shaped container. There was only one researcher in this huge lab, and he was also frozen in place. He was also holding a password card in his hand, and it looked like he was about to use it to activate some program. Wang Ming stepped forward, took off the password card, and directly swiped it on the device in front of him. Very quickly, Lotus Sun saw a line of words appear on the screen. Lotus Sun took a step forward, frowned, and recited, "What's the person you like the most? What does this mean, Brother Ming? Is it password?" "Maybe." Wang Ming nodded and smiled. Because researchers are under a lot of pressure, they often add their own wicked taste to the password setting process. This is the same as the news I saw about a foreign doctor before. It said that the foreign doctor was so stressed that he carved the letters "is" and "b" on his patient's liver when he was operating on him. Lotus Sun saw Wang Ming put his hand on the researcher's head. "It's fine. Let me see what the password in his head is." But the strange thing was that as soon as Wang Ming put his hand on the researcher's head, the electronic screen in front of them suddenly jumped. Mind reading complete. The facial features of the person you like have been successfully retrieved. Lotus Sun and Wang Ming were stupefied at the same time. God knew that this wasn't a password at all, but a mind-reading question. What shocked Lotus Sun and Wang Ming even more was after the electronic voice sounded, all the ducts connected to the keel in the laboratory instantly burst into a dazzling light. Waves of energy flowed through the ducts and were absorbed by the egg-shaped container in front of them. All of it was injected into the egg-shaped container. BZZT. An astonishing burst of spirit power appeared. A powerful shock wave burst out from the egg-shaped container, and then cracks gradually appeared on the egg-shaped container. "This, Brother Ming, what is this?" Lotus Sun was stupefied, because a 6-year-old child had appeared in the egg-shaped container in front of them. Furthermore, it actually looked like Wang Ling. Although it was just a child's face, Lotus Sun could tell with one look that it was Wang Ling's face as a child. That question just now was reading Lotus Sun's inner thoughts. The brilliant light flickered for a long time, and this child, who looked almost identical to Wang Ling and was full of the aura of the Dragon Clan, finally opened his eyes. His facial features were so similar to Wang Ling's that Lotus Sun was a little dazed for a moment. The only difference was the 2 7-colored glass dragon horns on his head and the agile 7-colored glass dragon tail on his tailbone. Then, something even more astonishing happened to Lotus Sun and Wang Ming. The child in front of them opened his eyes and looked at Lotus Sun as he spoke in a soft and delicate voice. "Mom, Lotus Sun." Chapter 1735. Lotus Sun was stupefied as she stared at the 6-year-old child in front of her, who stared at her and called her mommy. She was deeply shocked. "Brother Ming, did you arrange for this lotus root person? What are you thinking?" Wrong, I didn't arrange it. I did have the idea, but I assure you, I didn't create this little guy." Wang Ming dropped his forehead into his hand. "I just looked at the research data in this lab. They should be conducting a dragon bone gene synthesis experiment. In other words, this child is also a descendant of the dragon race." "That's right. Furthermore, he has all the abilities of a descendant of the dragon race. It's just that the data I saw shows that this experiment has already failed 1,624,600 times. Who knew that this little guy would hatch as soon as we invaded this place?" Wang Ming said, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Lotus Sun, to be honest, she didn't know what to do with the current situation. She had never imagined that she would be the one to become a mother. Mommy, the little guy in front of her was still calling her name and even opening his little arms for her to hug. Looking at this face that looked so much like Wang Ling's, Lotus Sun hesitated for a moment, but in the end still picked him up. Children needed to be coaxed, so she decided to explain to the other party as gently as possible that she wasn't his mother. Listen, little guy, I'm actually not. In the end, before she could finish speaking, the little guy directly said, my name is Wang Muyu, my daddy is Wang Ling, and my mommy is Lotus Sun. Lotus Sun was instantly stupefied. She wasn't stupid, and immediately knew that when the system had formed the facial features, it had also transferred some of her memories into it, causing the little guy to fill in the blanks about his life. The situation was becoming troublesome. Lotus Sun frowned deeply, her heart full of complicated feelings. At the same time, she looked at Wang Ming in bewilderment. Brother Ming, why doesn't Wang Ling's great shielding spell work on him? Ling Ling's great shielding spell can prevent most humans and high-level cultivators from peaking, but this little guy is an omnipotent dragonborn from combining the power of all dragons. I'm afraid we'll have to raise it by a few levels to restrain him, said Wang Ming. Mom, who is this person? When Wang Muyu heard Wang Ming say the words restrict him, he seemed especially sensitive. At the same time, he stared at Wang Ming with a vigilant look on his face, and then very seriously asked Wang Ming, are you a mistress? Wang Ming, Lotus Sun, this little guy was young, but he knew quite a lot. They cursed in their hearts at the same time. Why did the system instill so many strange things into his memory? Because of Wang Ming's momentary silence, the little guy's mood suddenly changed. His 7-colored dragon horns and tail instantly turned fiery red, and he said in his soft, childish, but not very standard Mandarin, you male third party. He stole my mother. I'll beat you to death. Buzz. A powerful surge of psionic energy erupted from his body, filling the entire laboratory in an instant like a flood. Lotus Sun was utterly astonished as she felt Wang Muyu's body temperature rise sharply. Then, she suddenly felt her hands burn, and she had no choice but to let go of him. The little guy became even more ferocious after being let go, and his pupils also turned fiery red, just like Wang Ling's. At that moment, his little face, which was unsmiling and serious, had a startling resemblance to Wang Ling. In that instant, even Wang Ming felt dazed. He had watched Wang Ling grow up, and if it weren't for the dragon horns on his head and the dragon tail on his back, he would really have thought that Wang Ling was 6 years old. Rong, protect me. Wang Ming was so shocked that his face turned white. This little guy was terrifyingly strong, and even though he had fused with the god brain, he still couldn't restrain him. When his mental energy probed, it was unexpectedly disintegrated by an invisible magnetic barrier. Wang Miyu had a combination of various dragon genes, and the magnetic shield dragon was just one of them. When he fought, the magnetic field on his body would spread out to form a barrier that could block all mental energy from invading him. Mysterious Sea. Protect Brother Ming. Lotus Sun reacted very quickly. With a single thought, a pool of seawater instantly formed a magic ball around Wang Ming. Soon, however, she suddenly felt a powerful force trying to organize her, trying to disintegrate the magic ball. Was this the power of an Azure Origin dragon? Lotus Sun was secretly astonished. This little guy's body actually contained the genes of an Azure Origin dragon, one of the 3 great leaders of the dragon clan, and he was trying to use the Azure Origin dragon's power to destroy her magic ball. We can't keep fighting like this, Brother Ming. I don't know, Rong. Why don't you admit it? I'm only 16. I can't admit this kind of thing so casually. She was a little anxious, not because she couldn't hold him off. With the full power of the 9 cores Mysterious Sea, dealing with a little baby like this was no problem at all. But if she attacked him openly here, she was worried that the entire lab would be destroyed and a pile of data might be destroyed. After all, their purpose in coming to the Heaven-level lab wasn't entirely for the Dragon Bone, but also to look for data on new talismans. On the other hand, she still had kindness in her heart and didn't want to hurt this innocent little guy in front of her. Although Wang Muyu had been created by these people, he was also an innocent party. There was no other way. At that moment, Lotus Sun frowned and stared at Wang Muyu. You won't even listen to your mother. I told you to stop." Wang Ming was extremely moved. He felt that Lotus Sun's sacrifice was too great. This stern rebuke had an outstanding effect. His esteemed mother's majesty was still present, and it immediately caused Wang Muyu's fiery red dragon horns and tail to fade, and he returned to his rainbow appearance. "Mom!" He called out softly, and it was impossible to get angry at his voice. Lotus Sun picked him up again and scolded him methodically. "This person isn't the male mistress you were talking about. He's your Uncle Wang Ming." "Oh, I see. Then what about my daddy?" Wang Muyu asked relentlessly. At that moment, Lotus Sun's heart was in despair. But she didn't want to provoke this little dragon man too much, so she could only lie to cover up another lie. "Your father is waiting outside. We need to look for some data now. Once we find it, we'll be able to go out and meet him." I understand." Wang Muyu nodded, then pointed in a direction. "There's a core secret room here. I'll take you there." "Core secret room." That's right, the place where all the data is stored. As he spoke, he stretched out a small hand and pressed it lightly on Wang Ming's shoulder. Whoosh! Wang Muyu used his space movement ability to directly take Lotus Sun and Wang Ming into the Heaven-level lab, the most confidential area. At the same time, Wang Ling was anxiously waiting outside the Heaven-level lab. Jingbai had already taken care of that huge dragon-whiskered monster, and not even a speck of ash was left, but for some reason, he had an ominous feeling. Chapter 1736. With Wang Muyu's help, Lotus Sun and Wang Ming were unimpeded as they directly entered the core of the Heaven-level laboratory. Wang Ming saw a huge experimental apparatus with countless slots for spirit chips on it. Like a brain, it was connected to countless crystal conduits in all directions. As expected, it's the core. Wang Ming was pleasantly surprised. "How do we copy the data?" "Use your brain." As he said this, Wang Ming turned his little finger over and pulled out a wire used to connect the data to it. Lotus Sun was blank. As expected of Brother Ming, "Has this been modified?" Hee, it's just a normal operation. This universal reading device was originally in my index finger, but after I met your sister Factor, it wasn't convenient for me to do things, so I transferred it to my little finger. For some reason, Lotus Sun felt that there was a hidden meaning to this. After connecting the universal reading device, Wang Ming's brain worked rapidly, and he felt as if countless pieces of data were being absorbed and stored in his brain. Under normal circumstances, such a massive influx of data would definitely overload Wang Ming's brain and cause it to overheat. But now, he didn't have to worry about this at all. The reading process didn't take too long. It only took Wang Ming a little over a minute to collect all the data in the Heaven-level laboratory. After pulling out the conduit, he didn't forget to thank Wang Muyu, who was glued to Lotus Sunday. "Thank you, little dragon man." "Uncle Ming, take me to see Daddy." This little guy was actually a little shy and even buried his head in Lotus Sun's shoulder as he spoke. TSK, this little guy is embarrassed. Wang Ming couldn't help laughing. Was Wang Ling like this when he was a child? Lotus Sun couldn't help feeling a little curious. Not at all. Wang Ming shook his head. He's been an emotionless poker face since he was a child. This is probably his original personality. He's an interesting little guy. Lotus Sun frowned and hesitated to speak. To be honest, Wang Muyu's sudden appearance had made her feel rather hesitant, and she was at a loss as to what to do. Since we're already here, let's take things as they come. It's better for the little fellow to be in our hands than in Baiju's. He couldn't say this to Wang Muyu, so he said to Lotus Sun telepathically through brainwaves, looking at the current situation, Baiju's essentially studying the omnipotent dragon to make it work for him. He's failed so many times, and we've actually intercepted his only success. So it's very likely that the situation we're going to run into now is he'll send people to snatch her away. Lotus Sun reacted quickly. Yes, they'll definitely send someone to snatch it. Wang Ming nodded. So we can't let this little guy fall into their hands. The little guy's ability is very strong, but his temperament looks very pure. As long as he's guided properly, there won't be any big problems. Wang Ming gave a very serious analysis. At the same time, he had the same concerns as Lotus Sunday. The main thing was that he didn't know how to explain this to Wang Ling when they really got out later, and he was very curious about Wang Ling's reaction when he saw this child. After all, for a normal person, suddenly becoming a father was definitely more of a shock than a pleasant surprise. Wang Muyu and Wang Ling actually didn't have any genetic relationship at all, and it was only because Wang Ling's facial features had been created and Lotus Sun's deep memories had been read. But the problem was they really looked alike. It was a perfect replica. Even the dead fish eyes and the color of the pupils were the same. When Wang Ming looked at them, he couldn't help imagining how he had looked when he had faced Wang Ling when he was 6 years old. He had also loved to bully Wang Ling as a child. Wang Ming was about to leave with Wang Muyu when it was as if there was an earthquake in the heaven-level laboratory, and the entire floor started to shake. Wang Ming frowned and had a bad feeling. Someone's here, and they're very strong, and they've directly invaded this place. Several secret transmission channels opened in the heaven-level laboratory. Because Jingbai's sword chi had sealed off the outside of the laboratory, they couldn't directly enter, so they could only use space positioning to achieve a precise invasion. At the same time, countless black dots appeared on the map in Wang Ming's mind. One black hole after another suddenly appeared, and creatures with powerful auras invaded the heaven-level laboratory. Wang Miu also seemed to sense something, and his eyes were filled with hostility. Winding path teleportation? He also knew this spatial ability. Thus, he already had a sense of who the intruder was. If his judgment was correct, this person was probably a descendant of a dragon who possessed the power of Space Dragon. With a burst of purple spirit light, a long-haired woman with a graceful figure and red high heels appeared in front of them. SCB L007. Ling Yu. From the data he had just obtained, Wang Ming learned the specific information on this person. It was clear that Ling Yu was the leader of this operation. The remaining intruders also had the aura of a space dragon's power. These people were probably stand-ins that Ling Yu had created using the space division spell, which was equivalent to transferring himself from different spaces to deploy in battle. This was also an ability that a space dragon possessed. Hence, she was alone. It was an army. Little fellow, I've finally found you. Ling Yu revealed her graceful posture as she gently licked her lips. There was an indescribable seductive feeling to her as she said, I didn't expect you to be so pretty, little fellow. Come to Big Sister. Big Sister can take you to Father. Wang Miyu frowned, thought for a moment, then looked at Lotus Sun and asked, Mummy, why did this Ani say she's the Big Sister? Lotus Sun and Wang Ming. Big, Auntie. The veins on Ling Yu's forehead twitched violently when he heard these words. He felt as if his heart had been struck by a violent blow, and thousands of alpacas galloped past him. Stinking brat. Am I that old? She tried to argue with Wang Muyu. However, as a little dragon person, Wang Muyu was honest. How could he have any bad intentions? The little fellow stuck out her little tongue, and after a cute lil, she even pulled her eyelids at Ling Yu and made a face at him. Big milk can, you're already sagging, and you're still saying you're not an Ani. Look at me, Mummy. This is what a young girl should be like. Muyu, that's too rude. A child can't say that. Although it was a child's words that carried no harm, Lotus Sun still blushed as she listened. She tried her best to teach him, as if she was really teaching her own child. On the other side, Ling Yu couldn't take it anymore. No woman would be able to accept the fact that they were called aunties. This was a blatant provocation, and she couldn't take it. You stinking brat, and you. Ling Yu glared at Lotus Sun viciously, and the next moment, her figure flickered and she disappeared. This was a spatial jump technique, and it was extremely fast. She instantly appeared behind Lotus Sun and aimed at the back of her head, and her slender leg and red high heels lashed out like a whip. Lotus Sun didn't dodge. She had Mysterious Sea's sword chi to protect her, so she didn't need to worry at all. But Wang Muyu reacted very quickly, and the little fellow shouted, Mummy, Watch out. Then Wang Miyu twisted his body and straightaway stretched out his two little arms. Aiming at Ling Yu's leg, he used his bare hands to catch Ling Yu's leg with 100% bare hands. Ling Yu was utterly shocked. She hadn't expected Wang Miyu to be so strong. Her leg was caught on the spot, and she couldn't move at all. Chapter 1737. Ling Yu was astonished. She hadn't expected the little fellow to have such great strength. This whip kick of hers was called the spatial in 9 consecutive whips. It looked like it was just one whip, but in fact, it was 9 whips stacked together to form a tremendous force. Although it wasn't Ling Yu's full strength, this added up was still a tremendous force of 10 million tons. However, what Ling Yu did not expect was that the little fellow in front of her could easily use his bare hands to block her slender, snow-white thighs the moment they were about to land. Not only was it locked in place, but Ling Yu could also clearly sense that her strength was being dispelled. Is this neutral Jing? Traditional martial arts focused on neutral Jing, but Wang Muyu's move clearly wasn't. Ling Yu suddenly remembered the Yin-Yang dragon of the dragon race. This was a high-ranking general in the dragon race, also known as the Tai Chi dragon. And Wang Muyu's body had actually fused with the genes of this Tai Chi dragon. Ling Yu gritted her teeth and tried to pull her leg back, but the little fellow clearly had no intention of letting her go. She was so stunned that she couldn't pull her leg back. You little fellow, let go of me. I'll let go. Wang Muyu clearly hated Ling Yu. As he pushed her away, he actually returned the force he had dispelled to her several times over. The moment Ling Yu was released, she felt a tremendous force rushing toward her like a torrent. BZZT. At that critical moment, Wang Miu only saw Ling Yu's figure flicker for a moment before the force slammed into her, and she saw her fly backward, coughing up blood. Mummy, she's so fast. Wang Muyu's expression was calm. Even though Ling Yu had reacted quickly, he had still seen everything clearly. Just as he was about to return the force to her body, Ling Yu used the power of spatial jump to swap places with a spatial substitute, allowing the substitute to take the blow for him. After that, he was teleported back to the battlefield. This was done in one smooth motion, as smooth as flowing water. It clearly wasn't the first time Ling Yu had used a spatial substitute to take a blow for her. As the other party who also possessed the spatial ability of the dragon race, Wang Muyu's expression was very solemn. Auntie, is this how the space substitute ability is used? Wang Muyu asked. How I use it has nothing to do with you. Ling Yu's face was as red as a pig's liver. It wasn't because he was injured, but because he was angered by Wang Muyu. She was a charming female dragon descendant, yet she was being called auntie by a child who hadn't even grown his pubic hair yet. This age difference made her tremble with anger. Substitute. You should give your life for me. I can use it however I want. It has nothing to do with you. Ling Yu retorted. She had always regarded these space substitutes around her as tool dragons, and it had long become a habit. Auntie, that's where you're wrong. The space substitute will also hurt. Don't call me Annie. What does a little brat like you know? Auntie, you're still a virgin, right? Wang Muyu asked again. On the side, Lotus Sun and Wang Ming almost choked when they heard this question. Because he had the Moonlight Dragon gene, Wang Muyu also had a lot of insight into the physiological structure of the dragon race. Moreover, he had the ability to see whether the other party was a virgin at a glance. You're already so old, but you still don't have a boyfriend. AI, how pitiful. You're already at the age of being an auntie, but you still haven't gotten married? Wang Muyu said. These words weren't meant to annoy Ling Yu, but were sincere greetings from the bottom of Wang Muyu's heart. He really felt that Ling Yu was very pitiful. But for Ling Yu, these greetings were no different from violent blows to the depths of her soul. Today, I'm going to take you back, you little thing. Imprison me. She was flustered and exasperated, her face green. Wang Muyu's words had hit her sore spot, and all she wanted to do was capture him and ravage him. The next moment, Ling Yu's figure changed again, and a silver magic ball appeared in the air. This was Ling Yu's exclusive magic weapon for dragon descendants, the essence swallowing ball. It had reached level 3. Mom and Uncle, be careful. This Ani might run into someone with the ball. Wang Muyu's eyes instantly turned vigilant. The essence swallowing ball was elusive and could appear in any space and any location. The most torturous way to use it was to move the essence swallowing ball into a person's body and then let it explode in the person's body. Wang Muyu knew the characteristics of the essence swallowing ball, so he was on guard the moment it appeared. The next moment, his expression turned serious. There was a buzz. A wave of energy spread out in all directions like a tide, with Wang Muyu at the center. The entire heaven-grade laboratory was shaking, and soon after, it spread out beyond the laboratory. Ling Yu's expression changed. She never expected Wang Muyu's psionic powers to continue increasing. Soon, a scene that shocked her even more happened. She realized that the essence swallowing ball in her hand was completely out of control. It didn't listen to her commands at all, as if another force had intervened and forcefully reversed the situation. This was the first time something like this had happened, and Ling Yu was at a loss. What's going on? Her face was full of question marks. The loss of control of the magic weapon made her feel a sense of panic. But before she could react, there was suddenly the sound of firecrackers exploding in her mind, and countless mental links were severed. She actually sensed that the countless space doubles she had set up were completely cut off from her. Each and every one of them had lost contact with her. What was going on? She didn't understand. In the next second, one of the space doubles walked up to her. "You bitch! I've had enough of you." Then, slap, slap. A slap landed on Ling Yu's face. Wang Ling and the others frowned slightly when they caught this massive amount of psionic power at the same time. Very strong psionic power. Wang Ying's expression was also solemn. Except for me, Lord Ling, and little Sister Nguyen, none of the opponents we've encountered so far have been able to burst out with such strong psionic power. If this person isn't a friend, he's a great enemy. But I don't sense any malice in this psionic power, Death Heavenly Tao said. It's not uncommon for experts to restrain their killing intent. But this dragon descendant's aura is very mixed and seems very strange. Could it be a dragon descendant with a combination of multiple genes? Wang Ying laughed. Let's see. This guy is very interesting. I think we can recruit him. At that moment, only Wang Ling was silent, because he had already spied on him. Staring at Wang Muyu's face, he began to doubt his life. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.